Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Lots of news to unpack today. We've got California freaking out. They have ballots that they do not want counted. We have the Sheriff Chad Bianco out there in Riverside who is revealing to us that the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, has now filed an emergency petition to try to get the Court of Appeals in California to stop the count because they know that there are big problems inside, and we're going to unpack it all. We've got a good briefing on this from local news out there. We got reaction from Chad Bianco, and we'll piece together exactly what's going on before we explore some other election fraud that's out there. We know that in Arizona, Maricopa County, we got Stephen Richer, who's under investigation for obstruction. We got the Democrats freaking out about all of this. We've got guys like Mark Elias and PB&J Pritzker, who's looking a little less PB&J out there with the probably Ozempic or a little bit of an internet problem here today. And we're seeing if things are working. Let me swap on over. Looks like we might be back in business. We had some serious internet problems that we were working with. Right soon as we sat down, internet was working all day. And as soon as the show was about to go live, everything started cutting out. So hopefully we're coming back in business. We're trying to make sure the tubes are connecting themselves and seeing exactly what's going on over here. So we hopefully are back in session. Let me just double check a couple things as I'm looking at the interwebs. Let me do a refresh over here to see if we're still live and if anybody's out there. Looks like we do have some things are happening. Okay, stream health. Let me look over here. Stream is healthy. All right, loud and clear. All right, good. So that's good news. And we're going to figure out a more permanent solution here. We just got here, so we're on some of the backup interwebs, but we have a great stream planned ahead. Hopefully it works this entire time. If not, we will be back and we'll have an update. We'll upload the segments after the fact. We're still getting situated in DC, and the internet decided to drop out soon as we went live, literally 2 minutes before I hit the refresh button, and it dies because they hate me. But so we're going to get into business. We got some fun stuff to attend to today, and let's start it off with an update from what's going on in California. Let me get this re-queued up here. Might have a little bit of refreshing that we need to do out on the show. But here is the latest over in California. Panic in California over the ballots. We know that Sheriff Chad Bianco went and got them, seized the ballots after he got a search warrant and was allowed to go do that. And now the Attorney General from California, Rob Bonta, he just filed an emergency writ with the Court of Appeals to stop the ballots from being counted. There was a lot of back and forth on this. We know that Rob Bonta, you saw in our prior video, he was the guy who was sending a bunch of letters to Chad Bianco saying, I know you're investigating this. He went and seized 650,000 plus ballots, and there was a big discrepancy over the 45,000 extra votes that apparently were shoved in there in some way, shape, or form. So we'll go into what he has to say because now there's an emergency petition that has been filed. Rob Bonta does not want these ballots counted. Here is the new, hopefully, governor. I think he's running for higher office. Chad Bianco, the sheriff, explaining exactly what's going down, and then we'll zoom in for further detail.
Hello, California. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco and your next governor.
Nice.
Well. The political corruption in California just gets bigger and bigger. Our embarrassment to law enforcement, Attorney General Rob Bonta, just filed an emergency writ with the Court of Appeals to stop ballots from being counted in Riverside County. For those not aware, we are conducting an investigation into an alleged and potential 45,000 extra votes counted than the number of ballots cast in the November 2025 special election. So we are all clear. This isn't about counting yes and no votes. This is simply counting the total ballots and comparing that total with the number of votes reported by the Dominion machine.
Seems easy.
Plain and simple. Common sense. Not only did a Superior Court judge approve a warrant to obtain the ballots, but also issued a separate order to count them. Why in the world would Rob Bonta want that count stopped unless he was afraid of what that count would uncover?
Exactly.
We have an extremely politically biased appeals court, so this is going to be interesting. What's it going to be? let law enforcement count the ballots as part of a lawful investigation, or halt the investigation and sweep it under the rug. All California voters should be demanding transparency, not legal maneuvers and cover-ups. Stay tuned.
Oh, we will there, Sheriff. You can count on that. And there's more background on this. So we do have some updates on the filing. The petition has not hit the Court of Appeals docket yet. I've been refreshing that all day long while the internet was working. And then we see, here's more. We'll come back to this article. But the Hill, of course, was reminding us about what really was going on here. So this has been happening for quite some time. A bunch of letters back and forth. We covered a bunch of them. And here's more on the story from the Hill. They say, Sheriff Chad Bianco is running for governor. He sees more than 500,000 ballots, 650,000, I think was the number, from a November special election. And of course, this was about redistricting in California so they could shove in a bunch of Democrat districts and get a bunch of congressional seats as the midterms approach. So it's a big one. There's a lot of consequences to this if we can show that there was actual problems or fraud when they shoved in another 45,000 votes. He said his probe was sparked by a local elections group. They say the results were literally off by almost 50 Gs. This group was looking at the difference between handwritten ballot intake logs and the total number of votes reported to the state, right? This is why we fill out these forms. It's why we maintain chain of custody so that we can follow the trail. Who did the counting? When did they do it? Who are they reporting it to? And then you can compare and contrast. You can validate, cross-reference all the forms and see who's lying. Now, Rob Bonta and Art Tinoco, who is the registrar of voters over there in Riverside County, they say the difference was not 45,000. Here's their number, 100 votes. That's all the difference was. Little bit of a discrepancy there, I'd say. Now, the measure was approved in the county by more than 80,000 votes. And so once again, we come back and they say something like, well, it's not enough to change the margin of error. Now, Bianco has defended his actions and said it had nothing were reported and certified to the Secretary of State. That's a big number. And if this can happen in one county, okay, one county in California, what is going on in all of the other counties? 45,000 votes. Remember in 2020 that Arizona was about a 12,000 discrepancy between the Biden victory margin and the Trump numbers. Same thing in Fulton County, 11,800. So now 40,000, and those counties are much bigger than, I think, Riverside. I could be wrong about that, but it's just one county. Just extrapolate that out all across the United States. It's insane. Now, Bianco said, nothing to do with running for governor. He did get 2 warrants signed by a judge to go get him, said that in a March 6 letter, Bonta, the attorney general from California, who's now freaking out and taking this up to the Court of Appeals, he says you may have presented incomplete evidence. And this is, again, the same argument that we see in Fulton County, where they say that the search warrant that was executed by the FBI in that one was premised on a false presentation, a false affidavit to, again, a federal magistrate judge who signed off on those search warrants. So it's the same defense. Basically, everyone is lying except them. Bonta has urged Bianco to stop the investigation all the way going back to February 26, about a month ago, saying that Chad Bianco, the sheriff, can't count. He said, you're not qualified to conduct a recount. It's not a recount. We're not answering yeses or nos, and I don't think that would even be that complicated, but you just even can't count the number of ballots, right? You just can't count to 45,000. It's too complicated for the sheriff, like apparently is what Rob Bonta says. And this is the real problem. This is why guys like Mark Elias, that we'll take a look at, are freaked out because they say it sets a dangerous precedent and it's only going to sow distrust in our elections. Really? Is it? Or it might be the fact that you have 45,000 extra ballots that sows distrust in the election. Now, as of Friday, we talked about this. Bianco said that he would yield the probe to a judge. A judge appointed a special master. We've covered this a lot here. It's kind of a third-party judge who's going to oversee it, a special master. It's often a retired judge or somebody else with some more experience in kind of handling cases. So they'll take it over. And now Rob Bonta is not happy with that. He can't say, oh, okay, a special master is going to come in here and manage this. He says, no, that's not good enough. So he's going to be appealing that to the higher court. We're going to learn more about what's in his filing coming up. Now, one of the Democrats running for governor, called Antonio Villageroso, said that Bianco is looking to rise to MAGA stardom. And this is a good way to do it. If you want to be useful in figuring out how rigged our elections are, then everybody should consider you a star, MAGA and Democrats, because I can't imagine that even I can't imagine it. The Democrats don't really care how they're being governed as long as they're doing the governing. They can even have their whole party flip over to support illegal aliens, but as long as they've got a D by their name, the Democrats think it's not fascism or whatever they say, saying there's no credible evidence. There was plenty of credible evidence given the fact that a judge signed a search warrant for it, but set that aside. Democrat candidates don't know much of anything. Earlier this year, we'll come back to Fulton County updates coming up, but they also had their pallets full of ballots seized and were scheduled for an evidentiary hearing on that one in Fulton County coming up on Friday. Now, last year, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence also got Puerto Rico's voting machines. We've got Arizona information, terabytes of data that was apparently transferred over from the Senate president in Arizona called Warren Peterson over to the FBI. And the Hill, they have to always tuck this in here, the final sentence. Trump has continuously spread unproven claims that he won. They're so bitter that they know that the ballots are not in their possession anymore. And there's a new sheriff in town, literally. So here's more. We've got this over from Garrett Hoddle. I sent him a message today to say, hey, Garrett, can you share this document with us? Because they're not posting it yet. And it has not hit the Court of Appeals docket yet. But he writes over from KESQ, Channel 3 News out there in California. He says the petition has now been filed. Said he's gone to court, Rob Bonta, the AG, to try to halt the count and the investigation into the November 2025 election, saying the sheriff is pursuing a ballot counting probe without identifying even a specific crime. And this is in defiance of state directives. And in our previous video, we saw that the California AG was basically just trying to throw his weight around. He was saying that I'm the AG, okay? I can direct you as a sheriff to stop an investigation if I want you to stop it. And he sent a bunch of letters just screeching and caterwauling, very upset that the sheriff was not going to acquiesce. The petition was filed yesterday, March 23rd. In California's 4th District Court of Appeal, still has not hit their docket as of this recording, Bonta's office asked for immediate relief, including a stay of Bianco's investigation and a stay of the execution of the search warrant that was signed back on March 19, 2026. The filing says the AG is seeking an expedited review. Like, please hurry. They're counting. They've been counting for the last 4 days, all night long. And so please stop the count, okay? Don't let them finally tally the numbers because we're going to be in big trouble. The court filing marks a sharp escalation in the public dispute between Bianco and the sheriff. He was back out at a March 20th news conference. He said, the sheriff, that the investigation is continuing. I'm going on. I've got evidence of a crime. We're not letting this go. In the petition from the California AG, up to the Court of Appeals, the AG said that Bianco's office got 1,000 boxes of ballots and other election materials and began what the state describes as an amateur recount tied to claims of discrepancies. Not that complicated to just count things. Just put them in stacks. Put them in stacks of 100. And once you got 100, then put them in stacks of 1,000 and do that 50 times, and you're going to find out what the total number is. At the center of the dispute are allegations raised by a community group. It's called the Riverside Election Integrity Team, called the REIT group. Now, according to Rob Bonta in his emergency appeal, the group claimed that it reviewed the records, and the records that they signed on the forms, right, when the people are counting the ballots, they are filling out chain of custody forms and saying, opening the poll tapes, closing the poll tapes, and all the things. It showed, according to documents they got, 611,000 ballots, valid ballots that were cast, while the county then took the final results and shoved another 45,000 in there. That's a difference of about 45,896. Now, the filing says that no formal election contest was initiated under California law. And we've done that. We've done that. They tell us 65 times. Trump sued 65 times in various locations, and there was no evidence found by a judge anywhere, blah, blah, blah. Of course, as we know, if you've been here for a while, we covered it all. And we watched how if you sued too early, they would say, oh, no, you're suing too early. The election hasn't happened yet. So it's not ripe. Your claim is not ripe. Then you sue after the election. They say, oh, you sued too late. Sorry, the election's over. A lot of these issues are moot now, and latches attach. You should have sued earlier. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So why would we sue civilly anymore? You got evidence of a crime. You got probable cause, which is a reasonable suspicion, reasonable probability that there's evidence of a crime that is going to be discovered. You submit that in an affidavit to a judge. A judge says, yeah, I would say there's a fair probability that there's evidence of a crime in there. Search warrant granted, sign it, send it, and go deliver those ballots back over to your custody. Bonta's office, he also argues in the petition, that California law already provides civil procedures. Okay, I don't want a criminal investigation. No. I want a civil lawsuit that a judge will just laugh at and throw out. Says Bianco instead used criminal search warrants without establishing probable cause. Again, that's not obviously what a judge thought. A judge signed off on a search warrant. This isn't a sheriff who's just acting out of nowhere. He's going through a proper process. In this case, it's the criminal process, Rob. So the petition repeatedly argues that the March 19th warrant, like earlier warrants, failed to identify a specific felony or a particular suspect, and it's because it's an ongoing open investigation. We're going to find what felony they committed as soon as we go through those ballots. So the filing also says that Bonta, acting under his constitutional and statutory authority under California law, literally directed Bianco to preserve all seized materials and pause further action while I come in, the Attorney General, and decide if you can do this. Okay, so I'm going to kind of throw my, weight around and take over everything. In that letter, Bonta said that his office was concerned the affidavits identified no specific felony and no particular person. Now, a second letter that was sent in March warned Bianco not to count. Do not begin counting those ballots. So he says, I'm not obviously going to continue. I'm going to obviously continue the investigation. And after it continued, Bonta sends another letter saying, don't count them. You guys can't count over there. Okay. You're just sheriffs. Only poll workers and election officials from the state can actually count the ballots. No. Said, you're not trained. You have no experience in any of this. And if you don't stand down, we're going to come after you. Same thing that we saw in Arizona when the Attorney General, Chris Mays, and the Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, when they started threatening other senators. If you even think about sending any information over to the FBI or to the DOJ pursuant to their requests, we're going to charge you with crimes. And Chris Mays already went after the alternate electors. So it's the same type of threats, right? The attorney generals, the secretaries of state, and the governors, they rise to these levels of power. They seize total control. And if you try to challenge them, they step all over you or threaten you with jail. Court exhibits included with the petition show that back on March 5th, not long ago at 1:30 p.m., Bianco, the sheriff, emailed California's AG's office saying that, yeah, I got your letter. And he was complying with the directive of the letter pending further communication. But then Bonta says the sheriff later went back to court and got a new warrant. And then he restarted the ballot count. So Bonta sends him a letter. Yeah, I'm going to comply with that letter. So yes, I won't use that search warrant and I'll just, kind of pause everything. Meanwhile, goes back, gets a new search warrant and just continues on. And the judge is like, yeah, great. So we have some amazing judge out there. Now, Bonta's office, the AG, says the move violated his directives, which of course is to continue to enable fraud, and further undercuts the state's ability to supervise the investigation, which is the whole point there, Robbie. The petition also says the attorney general still had not received the full case file and did not know whether a special master had been appointed or whether any recount had resumed. And we already are hearing other reporting that a special master has been appointed, but Rob Bonta does not want that to happen. The filing points to Bianco's own public comments as evidence the sheriff is conducting a broad fact-finding effort rather than investigating a clearly identified crime. A petition that was submitted quotes Bianco as saying the investigation is just as much to prove the election is accurate as it is to show otherwise, and describes the statement as proof the sheriff is not pursuing a traditional criminal case. He's just trying to cause some attention to, 45,000 extra votes. And this is the attorney general, okay? Shouldn't he be concerned about that claim? Why is he not investigating this? Why did he not go seize the ballots and start counting them? We know why. Bonta's office also said the Riverside County Registrar of Voters, the guy name who runs that is called Art Tinoco, had already publicly challenged the underlying discrepancy claims, saying, according to the petition by the AG, that Tinoco told county supervisors in February that the outside group relied on incomplete information and they were using raw data and handwritten forms not used to determine the official vote counts, which is curious because they say the discrepancy was only 100. Now, in a statement included in KESQ's reporting notes that we're reading from, Bonta's office also said, the California Secretary of State's office is willing to review the sheriff's allegations to put to rest any remaining concerns, offering a separate state review, even as the AG asked the court to stop the investigation. And of course, we're waiting for the full documents to drop, and we'll see what Sheriff Bianco says in response. So there's a little bit of a response to that. No, just give us the ballots. We'll count them. We don't want you to count them, but we'll take a look at them. We're willing to put to rest any remaining concerns. We'll have a separate state review, but the AG is stopping this court from investigating it. Now, I don't buy that for a second. Okay, he could have come in here and made that offer a long time ago. Now we've got 3 search warrants that have all been submitted, signed off on by a judge, and he just really wants the count not to happen. We have a special master who's going to come in here and navigate this thing on behalf of both parties, and Bonta doesn't want that either. He wants the ballots back. He does not want the count to happen. It's just a token little, well, now maybe we can have some sort of solution to this, but he could have addressed this a long time ago and he's not. So that's why we've got an emergency petition to stop the count, which was submitted to the Court of Appeals. Obviously a big deal out there in California. And we know that our county recorders and our registrars and whatever your state calls them are corrupt partisan hacks. One guy who, in my opinion, fits that bill is Stephen Richer, this guy, who from Arizona was the guy who tried to hand tie Justin Heap, the new county recorder, when Stephen Richer lost the election to him. He entered into a settlement agreement with the Board of Supervisors and said that the Board of Supervisors gets to inherit a bunch of powers that his office is supposed to, under a statute, under a law, maintain. But Richer, on the way out, limited all those options by contract, essentially, with a counterparty. And now we have a whole fight over this. But we know this guy is also under investigation for obstruction. And we saw that because this gentleman right here, John Gillette of Arizona, explained it all to us. He said, we have the evidence. You can watch the entire hearing. We did hear some time ago. We've got ballots. We've got registration flips. We've got illegal aliens. We've got non-Arizona residents, third-party MVD vendors. We got all of it. Here's a little clip from that hearing in case you missed it.
The last page you'll see is the actual criminal referral that will be sent out today after this committee.
Let's boost this volume up. A little bit quiet on my end, probably for you too. Let's check out what's going on here.
The last page you'll see is the actual criminal referral that will be sent out today after this committee. It will be going to the Department of Homeland Security, election assistant director. You'll see very clearly the federal election laws that are violated: 52 USC 2511, 10307C, 371, 1343, 1001. Now, under election infrastructure and cyber.
Weird. Lots of U.S. code right there, huh? Lots of potential criminal charges. How come Rob Bonta couldn't come up with those types of claims and make a criminal referral or investigate a possible criminal referral by doing his own investigation? Because he doesn't want to. So maybe these aren't state crimes even. Maybe what we have are federal fraud crimes or registration crimes, right? You have to follow the law, federal and state, and the AG could easily make a referral. If his state of corrupt California can't cover it, they could easily pass it off to the DOJ, but Rob doesn't want to do that.
As you remember, we had a cyber attack to the Secretary of State's office. Many people, I'm still finding, don't know that the IRGC breached the Arizona Secretary of State election system, which is critical infrastructure under federal law. And it is covered under HAVA because it's elections critical infrastructure. We have definite proof that preservation integrity of the election records was not done. It was suspect to computer fraud and abuse. That is 1030-2701. Non-voting, or immigration, non-citizens voting, we have several.
Yeah, and they have several in California. Several, probably 100,000, given the fact that LA is one of the biggest sanctuary states in the entire country. Now, of course, Stephen Richer is telling recorders and was telling recorders not to comply with any public records requests. We've seen this before. They are obstructing proper investigations by local sheriffs in California, by state representatives in Arizona, and the pattern goes on and on. Now, that is not a glitch, said Gillette. That's on purpose. Another state rep was there, and we covered a lot of this, but now these records are being seized, and guys like Mark Elias are freaking out. This is Mark Elias, the guy you see all over the place from Democracy Docket. He now runs his own law group called Elias Law Group. Democracy Docket is another leftist institution that files election litigation against basically everybody in order to rig the rules to their benefit. And they're nervous. He is posting about this seizure. He says, we have seen the DOJ secure search warrants to seize ballots in Georgia. They also got a subpoena to go seize ballots in Arizona. It's like a Christmas every time a new state gets added. Now a sheriff is seizing ballots in California. This is a crisis unfolding in real time. And we're happy that Mark is recognizing this is a crisis for their side because it's a crisis for the fraudsters. And maybe Mark Elias can do some more comfort eating and settle his nerves down a little bit. But one guy who's doing a lot less comfort eating, I think he's on one of the GLPs, is PB&J Pritzker. He's calling this a plan to steal the 2026 midterm already. It's already underway. You mean steal it from the fraudsters? That's the point. That's why they're so nervous about the TSA now having help from ICE officials and more. But let me share this one with you from the researcher. She does amazing research, and that's why her name is the researcher. And she watches these lunatics called Norm Eisen and these two other weird people over at the Contrarian. And she watches this stuff so that we don't have to watch it. And we're very grateful for this. But here is this shocking video. And I actually think I pulled up the wrong clip from her. So let me grab the right one because that was a different one. And in this one, she explains explicitly Jennifer Rubin and the others say this out loud. Here it is. Norm Eisen's brainwashed sidekick called Jennifer Rubin, she said the truth out loud. They are using color revolution tactics to overthrow Trump 2.0. What does that mean? Regime change. Okay, a lot of people focused overseas on that regime. What about this regime that they are trying to overthrow, aka the legitimate, duly elected administration that they don't want to continue to govern? They tried this with Trump 1.0. We lived through it. We all lived through the Mueller report, the Russia collusion hoax, the laptop letter. They prosecuted Trump 4 times. They waged war on the J6ers and everybody even remotely affiliated with Trump 1.0. This is the grand conspiracy. This is what these people have been covering up. This is why they do not want the elections to be looked at more closely. Norm, this guy right here, who's really the mastermind behind a lot of this stuff, is chiming in when she admits, Jennifer Ruby, she admits that we are actively working to overthrow the regime. This is how these people talk. And we've explained this before. These people play politics like crackheads, okay? They'll steal from you. They'll stab you in the back. They'll do anything possible to maintain their power because this is how they operate. Meanwhile, the Republicans are like, well, oh no, SAVE Act, that sounds pretty complicated. You know, it's Easter, so we have to go home. And we really don't want to do much work on this because John Thune says it's politically not feasible. Thanks, John. Meanwhile, these people are sharpening their knives to cut the jugular out. Here's what Norm Eisen said on this very short clip on this podcast over at the Contrarian. Nobody really watches it, but they just like to talk amongst themselves.
We are in favor of regime change here at home. And come November, we will begin that process. It is time to throw the bums out.
Regime change, peaceful and lawful. Yeah. They're exploiting the law. they're using the laws against us. Okay, nobody else plays like this, and it's not the government is not supposed to work like this, where you can jerry-rig the entire system for your benefit. It's supposed to have some good faith actors, right? You have a duty of candor to the court. You're supposed to be essentially working against each other, but not kicking each other in the nads. This is what the Democrats do repeatedly. So they admit it. Norm Eisen has to come in and correct her. But truthfully, this is how they play. They're like crack addicts. Now, over in Fulton County, a little bit of an update here. We see that we have a hearing that's being scheduled for this Friday. We've got an evidentiary hearing. Ooh, and a new document just dropped. So a couple things. We do have a scheduling. Ooh, got some new docs. Okay, so I wanted to share with you that yesterday we covered this. We had an order denying the motion to vacate the evidentiary hearing. It was scheduled for Friday. The DOJ said we should not have this hearing because this is a parallel process. This, of course, is the civil case that is now trying to override the criminal investigation. The DOJ went and got search warrants from a magistrate judge out there, and they got the pallets full of ballots in Georgia, in Fulton. Then what happened is they filed this lawsuit. It's going over to Jean Paul Boulay, who is a Trump appointee, surprisingly. And what he has said is, I have to receive evidence on this matter. The DOJ is now fighting to say, okay, you can have an evidentiary hearing, but you cannot ask our witnesses questions. Like, you can't call in our FBI agent and get a sneak preview of the criminal investigation or the criminal prosecution. If and when you get charged, which hopefully they do, then you can make your defense. Then you can have evidentiary hearings. Then you can do your interviews and you can prepare for a criminal case to defend your position. But up until that point, you can't do it. And so we've got now a couple new documents that dropped and new people are entering the game. So the DOJ has two new lawyers who've come in. Michael Weisbuck, on behalf of the United States, entered in his notice of appearance. So we're getting like armed up, both sides getting new players coming into the game for Friday. Then we've got another person called Peter Cooch. Pretty sure that's how you say it. Coach? Maybe it's Coach. We'll go with Coach because that's better. But Peter Coach has also entered the game. Then we just got today. This is fresh out of the oven. This was not here minutes ago. And we've got a couple new orders. One new order from the judge. And then we've got a new request from the Fulton County fraudsters. Let's pull this document up and see what we got cooking over here. Fresh out of the oven. You know how much we love fresh documents. Got that fresh document smell. See here, we've got a couple of combined orders. So Rob Pitts is the Fulton County Board of Commissioners chair. He sued the United States of America to say, give us our pallets full of ballots back. We also got the NAACP that looks like they're in here saying, don't you take our ballots, because it could be problematic. So now we have a hearing, March 27th, coming up this week. Specifically in Pitts versus United States, the court will hold an evidentiary hearing on a motion for the return of the property. Okay, they want their ballots back. Each side shall have 2.5 hours. The parties may use this time in any manner they would like. So we can have arguments, direct exams, we can have cross-examinations. Then after that, we're going to have another set of oral arguments. After Pitts, the court is going to hold an oral argument on Justin Glau's motion to intervene and the motion to dismiss. So Justin Glau, we've seen, is another journalist who I think is pretty anti-Trump. He wants to come in this case. And then a motion to dismiss filed by the NAACP versus the United States. So it's kind of just a generic scheduling order. So I don't know if this is even related, but for those matters, the oral argument shall be 30 minutes. Each side shall have 15 minutes to present their arguments, once again signed by the judge today. And we're still waiting for a ruling on whether or not the subpoena for the FBI special agent, who was the person who filled out the affidavit for the search warrant in Fulton County, whether he's going to be required to testify, right? It's like two separate issues. You can have an evidentiary hearing, but it's going to be pretty damn boring if you can't ask any questions of the FBI agent who actually got the search warrant. They're saying you can't ask him questions. It's all privileged, all part of an ongoing investigation. And so we'll sit there if you want, but you can't ask him anything. Or if you put him on the stand, he's just going to sit there and say, sorry, privilege. Sorry, can't answer that. Sorry. It's an ongoing investigation. So it might be pretty dull. Of course, it's going to be in federal court, so it will not be live streamed. But as we just saw, it does look like the Fulton County fraudsters, they want to bring in audio-visual equipment. Now, I don't know if they want to live stream any of this, but they may just want to record it. There's generally a standing order against any live broadcast of federal court proceedings. I wish that was not the case. Things would be a lot more interesting here. But they have now submitted that once again, fresh out of the oven. So Fulton County, along with California, along with Arizona, now continues on and marches forward. And we have a state senator over there called Senator Greg Dolezal, who we've talked a lot about here, who's done a lot of great work investigating Fani Willis and Nathan Wade and others. And he was out. He's running to be lieutenant governor, and we hope he wins. Fani hates this guy. She was in her pink, purple Sesame Street character outfit, or maybe that's a Muppet character. Either way, it's hard to tell. But when Fani Willis, said Senator Greg, when Fani indicted Trump and 18 others in Georgia, this is what I'm talking about, okay? They went after everybody. Michigan, they went after alternate electors. Arizona, alternate electors. Fani Willis, alternate electors, plus the president, former president. Like crack addicts, the establishment just wanted to let the courts handle it. That's all. Now, that wasn't good enough for him, so I didn't sit back and I stood up and I fought. Here's how. Here's more from Senator Dolezal out there in Georgia, in front of a pretty dang cool picture right there.
So after Willis indicted President Trump and the 18 others, everybody's like, what do we do? What do we do? And kind of the prevailing wisdom down here is, well, just let it work its way through the court system. I'm like, that's not good enough for me.
Yeah, you mean like in front of Scott McAfee? Scott McAfee, the judge who presided over the case, who did not kick Fani Willis off, and then got overturned on that by the Court of Appeals, and then got confirmed to have been dead wrong on that by the Georgia Supreme Court. Do you mean the same Scott McAfee who donated to Fani Willis and who used to work for Fani Willis and who got his job after he had a role in investigating the 2020 election fraud? Brian Kemp was like, all right, man, just give me the result we need. I'll make you a judge. He's like, perfect. Now I'm a judge. Same thing with Vic Reynolds, who made his way up from the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Now he's a judge. Everybody got to be made a judge as long as you played ball out there in Fulton County, because Brian Kemp decided to do that. So why would we even ever trust anything that came out of there? We know that there was a very stinky, noxious odor coming out of Fani and Nathan and their special counsel relationship in prosecution. And we were supposed to just stand back and stand by and allow the courts to continue the rigging? No, thanks.
What? That's not good enough for me. So I began to work with our lawyers down here and just kind of investigate what could be done. And the Georgia Constitution actually gives the same authority to investigate the affairs of the state to the legislature as it does the attorney general.
Oh, wow.
And our attorney general was not doing anything. And so I wrote a resolution that said, we're going to form a committee. We're going to give it subpoena power. We're going to give it the ability to swear witnesses in under oath, which at our state level is not something that we ever do. And we did. And we fought Fani Willis in court for a year and a half.
Nice.
Finally got her to come appear. She appeared on December 17th of last year. And what we discovered in that hearing was shocking. We discovered the coordination with the Jan 6 committee. We discovered the coordination with the White House, but she, of course, doesn't remember anything. And Nathan Wade, who was her paramour, who was conducting all of the work for her, in his congressional testimony, he also said, yeah, I know I billed for conversations with the Jan 6 committee, but I don't remember who I met with or on the 8-hour meeting. I have no idea who was there, and I don't know what we talked about. I know the same day that Jack Smith was appointed by the White House that I was on a phone call with the White House for 8 hours, but I have no idea who I was on the phone with, and I don't know what we talked about. That's the same day, by the way, that Michael Colangelo left as the number 3 guy at DOJ.
That's right. And went down there.
And went to New York to help Alvin Bragg. So
that was the piece for me that really was like, oh, this is all coordinated.
Yeah, because who's leaving as the number 3 guy at DOJ to go work in the city DA's office?
Yeah, the Democrats do that. They send out their little minions. They go out and install themselves in other positions of power, and they ratchet up the attacks. There's a hub and spoke. Of course, at this point, the hub was the Biden administration. They enabled waiving Trump's privilege, the January 6th committee to gobble up a bunch of evidence, waiving executive privilege. We had the D.C. judges facilitating that, as we'll talk about in the next segment on Jack Smith. We have people being deployed from the DOJ who don't actually maintain themselves at the DOJ and continue the collusion and the grand conspiracy. Then they go and work for Alvin Bragg. Are you joking me? Unfortunately, we're not. It's real. And these people are lunatics. So, of course, we saw that in Arizona, there were some rumors that the IRGC was hacking. There's rumors that Chinese access literal voter registration databases and then gobbled up all of the registration information and then imported tens of thousands of fake ballots, of fake IDs rather, that literally worked. Tens of thousands of ballots came in. They barcodes worked. So they're kind of fake. I mean, they're actually fake, but they actually work. You can scan them and they work. We talked about that many times here. So what do we do about it? What is the DOJ up to? John Solomon, who broke a lot of the stories, got access to a lot of these materials and shared them with us, is explaining this on With Bannon.
Corruption of the intelligence community is anything we've seen. Russia collusion. That mom's intelligence report, which we broke 3 weeks ago when Director Ratcliffe retracted it because it was so offensive and so laughable. But what has happened is that the left has infiltrated an intelligence community that traditionally has been centrist, even a little conservative in its views over the history of this country, infected it with a leftist ideology, and then tried to impose that politics over an intelligence officer's obligation to put their country first. And so in Great Britain, when they learned China was hacked, when China had hacked their voter registration database, the intelligence community there put their country first. They made it public. They corrected it. There were great recriminations. There was a national crisis. In this country, leftists in the intelligence community buried that notion. We know that because the ombudsman for the intelligence community said he found the evidence, he found the receipts, he found the goods that said that the intelligence community hated Donald Trump. They called him a vulgarian, and they were intent on not letting him, the Congress, or the American public know that China had hacked our databases.
They buried the evidence.
Voter registration data, specifically because they didn't want to help his China policy. They disagreed with it. They had a leftist view on China, and they allowed that political view, their ideology, to overcome their obligation to country. That's why this is so, you can apply it to lots of different things, but that's what happened in Russia collusion. It's what happened in Ukraine impeachment. It's what now has happened on election integrity. And until it is rooted out, until there's a deterrent, until this administration notifies the states that are affected, which it hasn't yet.
Wild.
It is not a corrected problem. And I think getting the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, chaired by Devin Nunes, a guy who helped unravel Russia collusion, is a big step forward. That is big impact from the stuff that we've been talking about in your show, Steve. Someone has listened. They're getting deeply engaged in it now, and they're going to do something about it. That's a good first step. And I think just like John Ratcliffe retracted 19 ideologically silly intelligence reports, you could see the CIA and the DNI begin doing some stuff in the next couple of weeks in response to the PIAB, in response to the Intelligence Advisory Board, to get right with this, to get our country right. Otherwise, 26 election is just as much a risk as 2020 was.
Yeah, and then think about 2028. If they can continue to exist in the intelligence agencies without any repercussions for their crimes, it's going to continue. That is the whole point. They just want to lay low and continue to operate behind the scenes. But we saw that Harmeet Dillon was celebrating a nice victory, or presumed victory, about Election Day ballots. We saw the Supreme Court had some oral argument yesterday about this very issue, and Harmeet was saying this is one of the highest priorities that we're working on, is to make sure that we have election integrity. Here's Harmeet Dillon from the Civil Rights Division at the DOJ.
The outcome of our elections, because you see the results flip. You see certain numbers on election day, and then in some states, like California, they can keep receiving these ballots for weeks after the election, and 8 states don't even require a postmark.
Crazy.
And the Postal Service also tells us these days they don't postmark all the mail.
Harmeet, just really quick, you said some states don't require a postmark?
That's right.
I didn't even know that.
8 states. Eight states don't require a postmark, and the Postal Service itself says they no longer bother to postmark all the mail. So
they don't? And we just read the rule. The post office also doesn't even postmark it on the day of receipt. They will send it to the regional centers now. There was an official rule change, I think November 2025. We looked it up. Great comment. And saw that they actually may postmark them once it hits the regional center. So that means you have no chain of custody. That means an election can be concluded, election day is over, and you can suddenly shove a bunch of ballots in. You can have fake IDs, fake ballots, nothing's postmarked. All of it looks legitimate. Register to vote using fake IDs that come in from China, and you get ballots and just shove them in. You just make up the difference as necessary. And then all you need is 11,000, 12,000 of them, and boom, Arizona flips. Boom, Georgia flips. Or boom, in California, you have another 45,000 to pad your numbers.
How do we know that these ballots were duly cast? And secondly, you know, the rest of the world we condemn for being not as efficient and as committed to Republican or democracy form of government as we are. The rest of the world has election results on election day itself. Even countries that we consider to be not very civilized do that. We're one of those places where we're, I think, ignoring federal law. So the statutes in question before the court go back to 1845. And there was a vigorous discussion about the history of the Civil War when there were certain unusual procedures put into place to allow proxy voting and battlefield voting and all of that. And we can always have exceptions to our laws, of course. So, for example, there's a federal statute that specifically covers overseas voters, and that's one of the statutes that I administer here. It's called UOCAVA. So where the federal government creates certain special rules, that is not an issue. But where states are making up rules that make it looser and looser and looser, and we don't have an election day anymore, that's the problem.
Exactly right. And that's the point. The grift is in the gray area. You need to adjust all of the states so that you can sneak into one of the states and flip the ballots when your candidate needs them. And so the question, of course, is what can we do about this? Trump says we need to pass the SAVE Act. And he said, don't you even think about leaving, Senate. We know Easter is coming up, and a lot of people want to be home to, of course, you know, religious people want to go and honor and celebrate Easter, but the Senate probably just wants to get out of the Senate because they don't like to do any hard work. But here's Trump saying, don't go anywhere. You need to stay in here until this gets passed, and do it for Jesus, who also talks about the SAVE Act. I think it was in Matthew.
So I'm tying Homeland Security into voter identification with picture and proof of citizenship in order to vote. And those two items are the most important thing having to do with Homeland Security. So it should be part of the Homeland Security bill. And I'm requesting that the Republican senators do that immediately. You don't have to take a fast vote. Don't worry about Easter going home. In fact, make this one for Jesus, okay? Make this one for Jesus. That's what I tell him. That would be a damn good thing. The most important part of Homeland Security is voter ID and proof of citizenship. Nobody can vote on Homeland Security without voter ID or proof of citizenship. And you can't have Homeland Security without voter ID or proof of citizenship. So we're tying them together. So I'm tying.
Yeah, it's in Matthew, right? Yeah, it's in Matthew. The SAVE Act, I think it's Matthew chapter 3. I'm pretty sure it's in there. Might be in the Old Testament too. I'm not sure. But of course, we need to get it done. And what we saw, courtesy of Nick Sorter, who's defending himself or actually helping to prosecute people who try to beat him today, he is sharing this clip. And apparently Steve Daines, who is a Montana senator, said that we're going to go on a vacation. We are going to go on recess. Jesus hates the SAVE Act. Here's Senator Daines.
This process was used goes back to 1964 with the Voting Rights Act. It took 60 days before there finally was a bipartisan agreement. In fact, Mike Mansfield, the Democrat senator from Montana, was part of that negotiation when they finally got 71 votes in the U.S. Senate to get that passed. But what happened yesterday at the White House was extraordinary. I got to give tremendous credit to President Trump and his team. The president saw what was going to happen right now at this moment in history a year ago, when we put an extra $150 billion in the Homeland Security budget as part of the reconciliation package a year ago, anticipating the insanity and the craziness of the far left who would want to defund police, defund DHS, defund ICE, and completely go back to open borders. And so because we have those extra funds, we're able now to craft a deal that will allow us to open DHS back up in totality, fund the TSA agents, and make sure that the flying public now is not having to wait 4, 5, 6 hours in airports. As we take a look at these images of airports around the country, it looks like a Walmart on a Black Friday with these huge lines.
Yeah.
This is nonsense. The Democrats have blocked this now 14 times in the last 39 days.
Right.
It's time to end the nonsense, and that's the agreement we got with President Trump last night.
All right. So, yesterday the president was saying that he wanted you all to hold up passage of finding some way to resolve this DHS bill unless you also had a plan for passage of the SAVE Act. Is that done? That discussion?
No, it's not. So here's what we discussed with the president. It's a two-track approach. Number one, let's stop this nonsense with ICE and TSA and get people back on the job. So that's step one to solve this week's problem. It's a parallel path now to continue to work on the SAVE Act that both Democrats and Republican voters widely support. It's just Chuck Schumer and the crazy left that's opposed to it. So what we'll do is we'll continue to battle on the floor. Mike Lee's been leading that effort on the floor. Again, as I said, it took 60 days the last time this process was tried back in 1964. But additionally, we're going to move forward with another budgeting, it's called reconciliation process, that will add additional financial resources to support both ICE and Tom Homan and Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, a great
we'll
pick
see.
for DHS, and enhance the ability to help on SAVE by putting financial incentives. So I think about it as SAVE Plus. It's going to be not only changing the way the laws work in terms of voter ID, but putting financial incentives to stop some of the nonsense that goes on.
I just want to make sure that I understand you. So you're saying that there will be a reconciliation bill that will tie money and tax issues to the SAVE Act, and will it in fact mean that there's a national legislation that insists that all states insist on voter ID for voting? Is that what you're talking about, or something short of that?
Yeah, you can't pass a pure voter ID law only using reconciliation. You can put incentives, financial incentive to discourage voter fraud. We can do that. But this will be in addition to what Mike Lee is working on the floor. This fight doesn't end. We continue that battle on the floor. Again, it took 60 days the last time this process was used to get bipartisan consensus to get to 60 votes to actually get a law passed.
So you talked about how long it took to do the Voting Rights Act, and you heard Chad Pergam's question there. Is there no GOP senator who's willing to go to the floor and do that filibuster to commit to this SAVE Act?
Well, we've had this battle now for 2 weeks. This is going to continue after we get back, after the Easter break, and this fight continues. The last time they did this, again, it was 60 days. I think this battle will continue. We're going to have the Democrats agreeing with their voters who overwhelmingly support voter ID to realize in many states that Democrats currently serve from, like New Hampshire, they have voter ID laws and citizen laws. This is just common sense.
All right. It's a sticky wicket, as we say. Thank you very much.
All right, so we'll see if they can get it done. And thank you for the corrections. That makes a lot more sense. The Save America Act is in the book of Acts with all of the other legislation that Jesus supports. Incredible. So here's more. Mark Wayne Mullen, of course, is our new Homeland Security Secretary. He got sworn in today by Pam Bondi, and he's out there saying we all want the Save America Act passed. And we want it passed now. And so, Senate, don't go anywhere until you get this done. Here's Mark Wayne from the Oval Office with the president.
Lindsey Graham, the chairman, where the reconciliation will funnel through, he is committed to making sure we get reconciliation through. If that is in some form with funding ICE, possibly backfilling from the One Big Beautiful Bill, but also, more importantly, the Save America Act. There's a framework that we can do through reconciliation, paying for it, put some of the policies that cost money in, because there's nothing more important than the Save America Act. I mean, that's what the American people want. There's 80% of the population say they want only Americans voting, citizens that are registered to vote, citizens that have done it the right way. And I believe that everybody wants an election integrity. So fortunately, Lindsey Graham has said through reconciliation, he's willing to put the framework out for that.
All right. So we hope that the Republicans don't forget about that. If that is the solution, what often happens is they kind of, will compromise on the big package, promise us, we'll fix it later. Don't worry about it. Just, trust us. Then we fast forward and we're like, oh yeah, where are those declassified documents? Oh yeah, where are those indictments coming out? Oh yeah, what are you going to, and it never ultimately happened. So hopefully they can get this done. Of course, we need the SAVE Act. We have all Save America Act in the Book of Acts endorsed by Jesus. He would want the Senate to stay and get this done. But while all this is happening, we've got one more follow-up from Chad Bianco, who is the sheriff who is now taking the criminal allegations into his own hands, bypassing a lot of the other oversight from the California Attorney General's office that's trying to stop this stuff from being ultimately investigated. And here's what he had to say last night with One American News, the sheriff from Riverside, California.
JD with the actual count. Fill us in.
Yeah, so this is very, very plain and simple, which is, I don't know what this is. Is it hilarious? Is it alarming? The reaction that you should get because an attorney general and the secretary of state are all up in arms that don't want this to happen. But it's very, very simple. We have records supplied by the registrar of voters themselves that said we had X number of ballots, but yet the machines spit out 45,000 plus more ballots than what they say there were ballots to begin with. And so it's very simple. And you're exactly right what I said. This is a fact-finding mission. I'm not saying there's fraud. I'm saying this is a massive discrepancy of what the ROV says they had and what the reported number was. And so we have to find out why. And the only way you're going to find out what the answer is to count those ballots. And it's very simple. And instead of the attorney general reaching out and saying, hey, do you need some help? Do you need us to send you some people? What can we do to help? He went to court to try and stop it, or he's going to go to court. He threatened to court. So I went to court first, and we had the judge's approval anyway. But now we have a special master appointed by the court that will oversee the counting.
I mean, I could see if it was 46 votes, not even 460. Yeah. 4,600, yeah. 46,000, a big
insane numbers.
Deal. And if that just happened in your county or a couple counties, how many counties are in the state of California?
Fulton, Fulton, Maricopa.
Exactly. Well, there's 58 counties, and the alarming part for me is no one cares about the discrepancy. And this is not something that's made up. This is what the registrar of voters reported.
Right. I just had on James O'Keefe last week. I know a few months ago, you went over to Skid Row with our friend Kate Monroe, and we're looking at some fraud stories as far as homeless numbers. Well, James went over there as an undercover homeless guy. Here's the video.
And shout out to James O'Keefe. There's fraud everywhere. Homelessness, hospice, we've covered a lot of it. And now election fraud is now being investigated by Chad Bianco. 45,000 votes, shocking numbers. And the state is doing what it does. They're like unleashing like antibodies to try to stop the actual good cells from continuing, freaking out, going to the Court of Appeals, and now demanding that they stop the count. Of course, we hope that that does not happen, and we're going to be here to follow up on it, see what the documents say, and see what the sheriff says as soon as his reply and response to the appeal hits the dockets in California. Thank you for subscribing and joining us as we keep our eye on this story. All right, and now let's turn our attention to another massive scandal that broke today, jammed with news today. Judges colluded with Jack Smith to try to weaponize the DOJ and the FBI to target their political opponents, to take them off the playing field so that they could maintain their power and seize the next election. Senate Judiciary Republicans, along with the senator from Iowa called Chuck Grassley, released a massive tranche of records. Seen here, 30 pages of materials that we're about to go through. But let's set it up a little bit and see what we're about to discover inside and just how shocking it all is. The Republicans posted this saying Jack Smith's team put together a wish list for Republican members of Congress that they wanted to target. Now, the team already knew these members, had communicated with Trump's inner circle, and they subpoenaed their private records anyway. And that doesn't do it justice. The actual understanding of this comes to us from this guy, Hans Mahnke. This guy wrote a book called Swift Boating America, and it's an excellent recount of exactly how they orchestrated the entire federal government to try to take out Trump and anybody who supported Trump. And he says that what we're learning in this document is absolutely staggering. He says the subpoena that was released this morning by Chuck Grassley in connection with the fraudulent Arctic frost investigation is absolutely staggering. It didn't just ask for Kash Patel's phone records. It asked for everything that he did, everything from 2020 to 2023. We're going to zoom in. But just to name a few, they requested all usernames and all screen names, every address and email. Complete billing and payment details included credit card and bank account numbers. Every single transaction, think about that. Every device ID, full log of every call, text, and voicemail showing who was contacted, when, and for how long. They also got all of his internet session data, including the exact IP addresses. And this is concerning because what if Kash was doing something? What if there was something strange in there? Now somebody's got compromise on this guy. And of course, you would expect that would have come out already if there was something there. So this just wasn't about who Kash called. It was basically a complete view of his entire life, mapping his daily routines, his travel, his relationships, his finances, even tracking the specific hardware he used. In short, they got a full digital shadow of his entire life. To have come through all of this without so much as a scratch tells you just how clean he is. And of course, he got confirmed as the new FBI director. And this is what they got. Everything, subscriber info, names, addresses, all call detail records, included but not limited to inbound, outbound calls, texts, direct connects, all voicemail messages, how long he was on these calls, telephone and instrument numbers, means and sources of payments like credit cards, bank account numbers, billing records, records and sessions of times and other network addresses, IP addresses. Every single thing that's connected to your phone, they wanted it all the way from October all the way through February 22nd, 2023. And they were mad at Kash because he wrote a whole book about this that named many of them. He wrote a book called Government Gangsters. He has a list in there. And in that book, there's a list of some of the worst people who are responsible for all of this. And so we've got the documents queued up, but here's more. Mike Lee, of course, has been all over this. He was in the Senate today having a great conversation with some amazing people like Will Chamberlain and others. Joe Biden's FBI, he writes, spied on privileged conversations between Trump's campaign manager and her lawyer, Susie Wiles, and her lawyer. Okay, nothing is sacred to them. They spied on members of Congress and they can still spy on us. Here's what this exchange sounded like from the Senate today.
And the FBI designated this as a prohibited file to prevent anyone from finding out about it.
That seems to be correct, yes.
Okay, so your testimony focuses, among other things, on an FBI recording of a 2023 phone call between Susie Wiles, who was at the time managing President Trump's presidential campaign, and her lawyer. Now, according to the FBI, the lawyer was aware of the recording, but isn't it true that the lawyer denied that he had ever consented to that arrangement?
That's true. That was widely reported.
And if, in fact, the lawyer did not consent, your testimony today is that this would have been and was an illegal wiretap by the FBI in the absence of her lawyer's consent with the FBI.
That's correct.
And the FBI designated this as a prohibited file to prevent anyone from finding out about it.
That seems to be correct, yes.
Okay, so they did something they weren't supposed to do, then they designated it as a prohibited file to cover it up. Now, in general, should the president be able to direct the FBI to spy on the campaign of his political opponent?
Absolutely not.
And isn't listening to a private conversation between a presidential campaign manager and her lawyer in many ways much more serious as an abuse of government power than an attempted wiretap of the DNC headquarters in Watergate?
Correct, because there's two interests being invaded. First is just the wiretap generally, but then it's doubly invasive because it's supposed to be a privileged conversation.
That's a privileged conversation, which regardless of who's involved in it, is supposed to be privileged. And that takes on additional flavor and additional degrees of seriousness when that person happens to be a client represented by a lawyer who happens to be managing the presidential campaign of the then incumbent president's lead and exclusive challenger, effectively.
Insane. And so how did this happen? Of course, judges were colluding with Jack Smith. And there's this concept in the law called ex parte proceedings. You're not supposed to go talk to judges without the oppositional party present. One side can't go and try to give the judge a back rub and convince them to give you and grant you everything that you ask for. And it is unethical. And they did it working together. The judges should be impeached and maybe much worse. But here's from Cornell, a little bit on this concept. In legal ethics, ex parte conversations refers to communications with a judge or opposing party without the presence or knowledge of the other party's lawyer. One side goes and makes their arguments. Judge is supposed to be neutral, independent, nonpartisan, non-biased. And this happens, and it's a problem. Now, most professional conduct rules prohibit this conduct. So not only are the judges unethical, but so was Jack Smith and his hack goons who were at the FBI and the DOJ. Says it creates an appearance of bias and unfair advantage. And in the documents, we've got 2 judges who are absolutely busted that we'll get to. Violations are commonly referred to as improper ex parte communications. And courts, with good judges who are legitimate, are cautious in granting ex parte relief because it may conflict with due process rights. We have the 5th Amendment. We have the 14th Amendment that incorporates that right. Those guarantee notice and an opportunity to be heard. So before one judge acts unilaterally at the behest of a party, the other side should get a say. That's how our system of law works. And that was not followed here. We're going to come back to that. Now, Chuck Grassley, the guy who shared the document with us, said the public has a right to know how their tax dollars have been used and who was involved in the decision making. I released new records today on Arctic frost that raise more questions about Jack Smith's conduct and candor, which he had none. And Smith even subpoenaed 2 years of Kash Patel's private phone records. Chuck Grassley, in all caps, says alarming. Yeah. We'll say. So here's more. Jeff Clark, who was a victim of a lot of this, said these are more indications that I was a major target of Biden's operation, Arctic Frost. Thank you, Grassley, for getting it out. And now you know why my Gmail account got so screwed up, because they were poking around inside. And the dirty whistle account here is correct, that the FBI investigated people like me who raised questions about 2020 a lot harder than they ever even investigated the election itself, because they knew what they did. Kash Patel has admitted that there were 250 FBI agents who were there, and I don't recall seeing 250, someone did the math, 17% of the people who got ultimately arrested were about 1,500. 250 were there only from the FBI, according to Kash, probably much bigger than that. We had Homeland Security, probably many other intelligence agencies were there, and they charged 1,500 people, even though a huge portion of the crowd was filled with feds. And the feds, from what we saw, didn't have FBI plates on there. When people like Ray Epps were saying, into the Capitol, nobody stopped him and said, if you even talk about that again, or you even think about going and crossing that line, we're going to arrest you right now. No, Ray Epps made his way to the front, was inside the building, was pushing flagpoles and signs and literally causing mayhem, and then got a little tiny slap on the wrist, was allowed to appear telephonically and do a virtual plea deal to a misdemeanor. Didn't do a day in jail as far as we know. So the whole thing was rigged. And what did they do in the aftermath of that? Well, they weaponized the government and they went hard after everybody. And here is what this briefing shares. So this came over from the DOJ, released over to Congress. Thank you, Pam Bondi, for doing that. Authorized for public release by Grassley, Ron Johnson, and Ted Cruz. And this looks like it's an AG briefing for the Attorney General. One would presume January 13, 2023, they are now organizing a report for a meeting. So you can see they've got all these bullet points they want to talk about. Here's an update for you and what we think is happening and kind of a summary of all of the investigative tentacles that have been unleashed against their political opponents. So they walk us through. It's kind of insane to read this. Okay, here are our resources, Merrick Garland. Happy to update you on this. The Filter team. They say we've got the staffing is now awesome. And here you can just, these people are such goobers. Kelly Zussman, who is a DOJ attorney, I don't think she's there anymore, is awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. Doing all of this work, attacking political opponents. Don't know if she's in the subject of the grand conspiracy, but maybe she should be. We now have approximately 20 filter attorneys. This team is in place until about April 1. We are assessing progress week by week, and we're going to be in touch with Molly and Rush about progress to see how we're doing. And there are 50 more devices like phone and laptop accounts, like emails, that are currently in a prioritized queue. So they gobble everything up. They pass it through filter attorneys, which they actually need to do that because they're supposed to segment out attorney-client privileged information and then actually process evidence. So this week, here's what they did. For classified documents, they completed a review of NADA iCloud account, which was about 1,200 documents. They're on the verge of releasing another 100,000 documents from Molly Michael's email account. They're also continuing to process NADA's 2 cell phones and other email accounts here. We expect additional material to come out soon. Now, as it relates to the election, the filter team is working through priorities. They've got these people on the list. Rudy Giuliani, who got his whole life destroyed over this. John Eastman, same thing to him. Jeffrey Clark, we just heard from him. Jenna Ellis had her life ruined. She pleaded guilty in 2 different cases. I don't know why. But then we had Epstein, Boris Epstein also. Lives destroyed, courtesy of these maniacs. They got devices from Eastman, Giuliani, Epstein, and Powell. And the staffing is going well. They're arming up. They're gearing up and bringing in a bunch of FBI agents to help with the DOJ's prosecution. FBI is complicit in it. They have face-to-name meetings with FBI HQ. They met with the deputy director and the FBI general counsel back on 1/6. And next week, they're going to go meet with this guy, Dave Sundberg, add the name to the grand conspiracy. Next week, they're also going to meet with the executive assistant directors called Larissa and Tim. And then, look at this, the next week, we're going to meet with Director Christopher Wray, the former FBI director who was, I would argue, complicit in the whole J6 setup. Now, most importantly, I also met with the actual case teams. We did an all-hands meeting with the entire team on Wednesday, 1/1. It went very well. We also met with the assistant special agents in charge, David Geist and Derek Piper, also hopefully are fired now. Met more substantively with other special agents, including Blair Tolman, Jen Bacon, and lead case agents Jamie Garman and Danny Ray. Love that we're getting some names out of here. And I did a couple of searches to see if some people are still around or not. Some people are not around anymore. The guy who actually wrote the subpoena, as we'll see down here, is no longer with the office anymore. But here's the briefing saying, here's our current staffing levels. We've got 1 special agent, 11 full-time agents, 8 full-time analysts, 3 full-time FOAs. We got a classified documents division, bunch of people here, 1 SSA, 6 full-time agents, 2 South Florida agents, 2 more full-time analysts, and additional people who are surging now. Overall, the FBI has been very responsive. Yeah, if they're working against their political opponents, they'll get you the documents that you need. But if we want to get 1.9 million documents that were related to this investigation, probably and others that are buried in safes and a secret SCIF at the FBI headquarters, we got to wait 10 to 12 months. Now, other notable meetings. This is where we see evidence of judges colluding with Jack Smith, using improper, unethical proceedings, ex parte communications to facilitate the grand conspiracy against the president and America. They had a Solicitor General meeting saying that they met with this person. They're committed to communicating and consulting with the SG on important precedent-setting issues that we face. They have to destroy precedent because the precedent prohibits them from creating their prosecutions. They say we have executive privilege, we have speech and debate, constitutional protections. How do we get around the Constitution, which says that senators and congresspeople are immunized from these prosecutions because the Constitution says so? The speech and debate clause protects them. And the scope of the statutes we're considering charging. So they have a problem. Okay, this is a big problem right here. So we got to talk to the new Solicitor General under Joe Biden. How do we get around it? Well, we have an answer right here. Let's collude with the judges. First judge is Chief Judge Beryl Howell, who was in D.C., one of the chief judges, and they actually met with her. No one had been charged yet as it relates to these people. They're still under investigation. So they meet with a federal judge, and they talk to her about the pace over the last month. They talk about redacted. Don't know why that's redacted. It's probably damning as hell. That's probably why. But guess what? The judge met with the prosecutors ex parte, which is unethical and illegal. And they, of course, came to terms. What did Judge Beryl Howell say? She liked our approach of pursuing the executive privilege litigation in an omnibus fashion. Okay, so we'll deal with it all in one big motion. An omnibus is kind of you compile a bunch of different arguments into one big final monster brief, and the judge can decide it all in one fell swoop. Rather than going through this piecemeal, rather than saying, well, you know, this senator has speech and debate protections, or this former Trump official has executive privilege, we'll just deal with it all in one. And I'll just waive it for everybody. And all of Trump's attorney-client privilege will also be waived. Judge Beryl Howell is complicit in the conspiracy. She is shielded by judicial immunity, and so she should be impeached. And after the impeachment, we can make the argument that she should be charged with crimes. Judge Boasberg, same thing. The same judge who is currently handling cases, who ordered the airplane to be turned around to bring the illegal aliens literally back into the country, and who has been continuing to hamstring the Trump DOJ by ordering the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and the rest of them to answer all these questions or be held in contempt. He apparently had a meeting with them on March 18th. This was drafted January. So they set up, it sounds like, it looks like to me, another ex parte meeting with a federal judge, two of them who then helped facilitate their investigation. It's a scandal of epic proportions. Any leftist lawyers out there, if they had any honor at all, they would say this is a giant problem. If Trump did anything like this, if Pam Bondi was going around and shopping out judges and trying to hang out with them and convince them to go indict James Comey or to go after John Brennan or Barack Obama, a former president, there would be a 5-alarm meltdown all across America. Judges would be screeching about this. You'd have all of the media say, what's happening to our country? This is a fascist takeover of our judiciary. On and on and on. But this gets a little bit of a blurb. In fact, Politico is reporting about this today, saying that Jack Smith should be given accolades. Like, look how he connected the dots. Look how beautiful this all came together. Wow, they're so smart. They had federal judges in the conspiracy. They were meeting with them, talking about the pace of the investigation. The judge liked our approach, says, great job. Do you think she's going to rule against them after their meeting? Do you think there's anything humanly possible that any one of these people who's under investigation could say to Judge Beryl Howell that would reverse her inkling to find in favor of Jack Smith and to give him exactly what he wanted? No, it's already foregone. It's the illusion of due process. In fact, there is no due process at all. It's shameful, and it makes my blood boil so badly I can't even explain it. But they did it, and no repercussions have come to them. And the senators are probably going to continue to jerk around for another however long until they don't have power anymore. And then they'll say, how did this happen to us? This is literally how it's in the document. So we also then have an election investigation. Now, the J6 report, the leadership team fully read and reviewed the J6 report, which was created by a fake committee. January 6th Select Committee was illegally constituted under the own House rules. It was supposed to have 8 Democrats and 5 Republicans. It didn't. It had 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans. There was no minority chair. There was no appointment by the Republicans. Nancy Pelosi appointed the Republicans, and the whole thing was illegal. Last weekend, we went over it page by page and incorporated it. So as we've talked about, the January 6th Select Committee acted as a grand jury investigative body. Under the guise and the power of Congress, they sent letters and subpoenas and demands. And if they subpoenaed Bannon and he didn't show up, jail. If they subpoenaed Peter Navarro and he didn't show up, jail. They took all of that evidence and they passed it off to Jack Smith's team. It's sick, but they did it. They prosecute like crackheads. They cannot let it go. We have a methodical process for logging in the information. We will leverage this to avoid needless interviews. So their own team of prosecutors, they don't do their own interviews. They will do some interviews, but they don't need to do all of them because the J6 committee already did it in a partisan hack body. So they also then got Mike Pence to facilitate some of this. They met with Emmett Flood, and Emmett Flood is this guy right here. And he was a former attorney who was the interim White House counsel under President Trump. So he came in and they needed to kind of get him on board. They said Vice President Mike Pence, he's going to assert speech and debate over conversations in preparation for 1/6. And Mike Pence is going to litigate this. He's also going to defer to Trump on executive privilege, but he knows it's a loser because Biden waived it. He is not too keen on a voluntary interview. He does not want a 302 that later could be subject to FOIA. Mike Pence doesn't want to put anything on the record because he knows we'll see it. So he also states that he's not hiding anything. He says, I wrote about it in my book. And other people have testified. So you don't need to come and investigate me. Of course, Mike Pence was basically a turncoat in the end and ultimately continued to castigate J6. And the guy's kind of, lost his mind. But he was standing firm on some of these issues. So we asked Flood whether there was any way to get a yes on the interview, perhaps an interview on all topics except for the speech and debate or some other limitation. And Flood is going to get back to us, but we're not in a rush on Mike Pence. So how do we get access to the information that we need? Following the same course as other witnesses, they're going to compel executive privilege. They've already colluded with the judges who already gave them instructions on what they want to see. So then they just follow their instructions. Redacted, redacted, redacted. Through the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, we will request that the White House agree not to assert executive privilege. Joe Biden waives executive privilege so that Jack Smith's team can go and interview these people. And if they invoke privilege like Bannon did, they go to jail. So they can now take their instruction from Joe Biden, who's a partisan opponent of Trump, who's, of course, going to run again, waives privilege, enables them to go attack all of these people. It was all collusion all the way to the top. They've done this with other witnesses. We will inform Trump, and we expect he will instruct witnesses to assert the executive privilege, and Bannon did. So redacted, redacted, redacted. They're going to file the motion by the end of the month. The chief judge knows it is coming, look at this, and loves the idea. So if you're on the receiving end of this, you say, I actually am going to invoke executive privilege. I've got a constitutional underpinning to support my privilege. It's too late. It's already been decided. All of your attempts to defend yourself are worthless because it's a foregone conclusion. Judge Beryl Howell loves the idea. It's going to be so good. Just file it all together and I'll grant everything that you want. The 11 former Trump White House officials who may be included, Chris Miller, get him. John McEntee, they got him. Keith Kellogg, Ken Cuccinelli, Mark Meadows, Mark Milley. We got Nick Luna, Robert O'Brien, Vince Haley, Scott Gass, and Ross Worthington, okay? They're organizing this. The judge has already given them permission. They also say we've already won some of these things on appeal as it relates to Cipollone and Hirschman and others. Scott Perry, they got a cell phone search warrant. Chief Judge Beryl Howell, the same judge who loves the idea, issued a favorable opinion granting us access to all but a small set of documents that he tried to withhold. Says, get everything you need. Beryl Howell lodged a prompt appeal and filed a motion to stay to Chief Powell lodged an appeal to Howell. Beryl Howell is the chief judge at the time. She denied the stay motion. The stay motion is now pending before the Circuit Court of Appeals, is ripe for decision, and the panel that we're going to be in front of is favorable. We also have warrants for Scott Perry's iCloud and emails before the judge, and she is holding on to those, and we'll grant those later. Some members of Congress also communicated with Trump and his surrogates. So now let's go after the phone records, the toll records for Congress people that we hate. Kevin McCarthy talked to him. Mike Lee, that we heard from in the prior video. Louis Gohmert and others. Now, it's unlikely that many of those members will cooperate with our investigation. And listen to this. The prosecutors admit that they likely have a valid speech and debate privilege that immunizes them from compelled testimony. They know we can't get them. They don't have to talk to us because the United States Constitution says so, but they hate the United States Constitution. They don't want that to prohibit them from attacking and taking out some of these very important people. Kevin McCarthy, Mike Lee, Louis Gohmert, strong representatives, strong senators, Speaker of the House. We got to take them out. In the coming week or so, we intend to issue subpoenas for the toll records of certain members of Congress for the period between the 2020 November and J20 and investigate those communications and to establish logical evidentiary inferences about Trump and his surrogates and their actions and intent. This requires consultation. Ray's going to captain this, and we're going to go after the following people. Louis Gohmert, Connie Hare, who worked for Louis Gohmert, Mike Lee. Mike Lee was contacted by Rudy Giuliani. Lots of texts with Mike Lee and Mark Meadows, calls with Eastman, Meadows, Chip Roy, Cleta Mitchell. He also got calls from Toomerville. Kevin McCarthy was talking to a bunch of people, and we also want Scott Perry, who is a rep, and we got him. Also, toll records, already got that guy. Now, we also got Fox News that we want. We understand from witnesses that Trump was watching Fox. That would have placed him on notice of the violence. We also understand from publicly, it's not his problem. It's the Capitol building. Okay, that's Nancy Pelosi's problem. She was too busy filming a little documentary for herself where she said that she was basically the cause of this. We know that the Capitol Hill chief of police, former Stephen Sund, wrote a whole book about this called Courage Under Fire. And he explained how many times he called them, how many requests he made to deploy the National Guard over to the Capitol building and to secure it. And Trump and his administration sent a letter to Mayor Bowser of Washington, D.C. and said, we're happy to deploy 10,000 troops. She responded in writing saying, don't deploy anybody. We don't want to hear from them. And denied it. And they all said that they didn't want Trump to deploy the National Guard because they were concerned that he would use the National Guard to steal the election, that he would federalize the building and force the vote. Oh, no. So he's damned if he does. He's damned if he doesn't. He doesn't deploy the National Guard, but Chris Wray's FBI deploys 250 so-called FBI agents for riot control. Kash Patel still defending them. They were forced to go do this. We understand from publicly available info that Trump is a regular Fox News viewer. To investigate his knowledge, we want to obtain public broadcast. Now, the footage is not stored in a public repository, so we have to go get it from someone else. They go get it from the news archives, they contact Fox, and if Fox doesn't consent, they're going to hit them with a subpoena. So they redact some other people that they interviewed. Don't know those names. They also had another interview here. Chad Wolf was acting Secretary of Homeland. David Bosey was there. Mark Meadows. Jack Smith is going to attend this one with Mark Meadows. Vince Haley and Chris Krebs. Remember that dork over from CISA with that long hair? Oh, no, it's the most secure election ever. Well, what do you know? Well, not much of anything. So that's that. Now, here are some of the emails from behind the scenes. Here's one from JSPT to TAD to TPW. Ones I think we should get first. Let's go get their info. We want Brian Babin. We want Andy Biggs, who's running for governor in Arizona. Mo Brooks, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar from Arizona, Louis Gohmert, Mike Lee, Senator, Lee Zeldin, Dan Sullivan, Marsha Blackburn, Bill Hagerty, Lindsey Graham, and of course, Ted Cruz. All because they were talking with some people who were challenging the election. They say, thanks, we want to go narrow this down. Please circle the ones that we can use. And the emails continue on saying, we already have phone tolls for Scott Perry, Jim Jordan, and Chip Roy. So they're not on the list. So Jim Jordan got spied on, Chip Roy got spied on, and Scott Perry got spied on. Josh Hawley is mentioned in the J6 report, but I haven't been able to identify a number from him, so I removed his name. Also, please note, when I mention calls, that only indicates that calls were placed between the two numbers. I'm not saying the calls were answered or anything more. This is coming from Timothy A. Dury, Tad, from the DOJ. Hopefully he's been fired. Perfect, and please, there's no hurry this morning, Tad. It's just occurred to me. So the guy calls himself by his initials. That's his nickname, Tad. Oh, gosh. It's occurred to me before we tell Maine that we're going to fire off subpoenas for so many members' tolls, I should make sure Jack Smith knows about this. Sure, give me a little time this morning. I'll add notations. And of course, Jack knew everything that they were doing. So here is kind of the final list that they start accumulating. Have we gotten tolls for other members? And they inherited a lot of this from the J6 committee. Ray, I'd like to seek PIN's concurrence to get the phone tolls from these other people. Can I reach out to these other people? Let me know. And then, boom. So they're organizing the whole thing. They create the list. of people that they want to target. And there are big names on this, very powerful people. Look at all these senators and people who are, Matt Gaetz was going to be the AG. So then they send the subpoena. This one goes out to Verizon. This is from Madison Ramsden. Hopefully she's fired. Please see the attached subpoena and the non-disclosure order and confirm receipt. Here it is. So, all right, we got this subpoena that has been signed off on by a magistrate judge called James P. Mazzoni saying, yep, you, Verizon, are now being served with a subpoena. The court finds reasonable grounds to believe that you should disclose this information and then do not tell them about it. Saying if you notify them that we're asking for their cell phone records, they might flee. They could be in flight from prosecution. Yeah, Marsha Blackburn's going to hop on an airplane and go to Tahiti. Destruction of or tampering with evidence, intimidation of witnesses, and serious jeopardy. So you shall not disclose the existence of the subpoena. Again, another ex parte thing that's happening to elected members of Congress. And every single voter who voted for Marsha Blackburn and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and the rest of the people who got spied on should be personally offended that their representative is being attacked by the judiciary. Here's more. Here's to the records custodian, November 23rd, 2022, over to Verizon. Signed here by Brett C. Reynolds. This guy has been let go, or he's not at the DOJ anymore. I don't know if he was fired or what, but he's not there anymore. And he said the same thing. So Verizon, give us this stuff. A grand jury and a judge gave us a subpoena. Give it to us, or we're going to force you to come in here. We're not going to reimburse you for anything. So no reimbursements will be paid for partial compliance unless you give us a full and complete itemized statement, and then we'll pay you back for it. So once again, another trial attorney at the DOJ is totally complicit in this, ignoring speech and debate, ignoring ex parte prohibitions on unethical conduct, and facilitating the subpoenas going out. And they went out for everything and everybody. Another declaration form here. Here's more. A subpoena attachment. Look at this. Kash Patel is on this list. And all these others are redacted. Don't know why. But lots of stuff. And as we talked about at the start of the segment, it's everything. Kash Patel's entire life has been gobbled up by the DOJ and FBI. And man, it sounds like he was clean as a whistle. But if he wasn't, isn't that kind of a problem? Who has that information? Who is in retention of that information? Who knows about it? And is that leverage in any way, shape, or form? I mean, we have to get to the bottom of this. It's insane. So all of this was signed off on by these FBI people, Jeremy Linton, Danielle Ray, Madison Ramsden. There's like kids at a candy store going hog wild. And another special agent, Jamie Garman, was also involved. Another set of documents. This one from Thomas Wyndham, who I think is now in a law firm with Jack Smith. And this judge, Beryl Howell, the same judge who loves the idea, is working with Jack Smith. Boom, signs off on it. Go get those records. And don't tell them that I approved you getting their records. Otherwise, they might have a flight risk. Here's more. Ariel McIntyre, Thomas Wyndham are all involved in this. It's insane. Kash Patel, we want everything. Every single thing that this guy has ever done over the last 3 years or so. In lieu of a personal appearance, just send me the documents. Jamie Garman probably read them, and that's really a concerning thing. So here's the instruction for the production of records. All of it goes out. I think the biggest scandal of this whole thing is not only the fact that they went after and got all the information about the current FBI director, the old FBI, gobbled up all of the information of the new FBI director, and you start to ask questions about this. I mean, I hate to do it, but you ask questions. It's like, oh, how come these people come in and they like suddenly become part of the institution, right? Come in, Kash writes in his book, we're going to prosecute all these people, comes in, all of a sudden, no one gets prosecuted. It's like, why is that? Is there compromise? Does the FBI have something on him that is being used as leverage? Does he know that they have something on him that could be very damning? And so he plays ball with the institution, right? The institution will protect itself. But if you step outside the institution, then they destroy you. They wreck your whole life. So I have concerns about that. I hope that's, far afield, maybe a little conspiracy theorist, but it is concerning that is what they did. And the judges signed off on it. 2 federal judges colluding with Jack Smith's team so much that they write, she loved the idea. Wow. Saying that she'll sign off on anything, just put it all in a big fat omnibus, send it my way, because I love the idea. The chief judge of the D.C. court, district court in Washington, D.C., colluding with Jack Smith. It's insane, and we need accountability for this. So here is more from Ted Cruz, courtesy of Nick Sorter, who walks us through just how deep this scandal goes from the Senate today.
Cleveland, Jack Smith issued nearly 200 subpoenas. Is that correct?
Margot Cleveland.
Yes.
Shout out.
Those subpoenas targeted over 400 Republican individuals and organizations, correct?
Correct.
Many of whom had no connection to those who entered the Capitol on January 6th, correct?
Absolutely.
And in fact, some of those organizations didn't even exist on January 6th. Is that correct?
It is.
So we're not talking about a narrow investigation. We're talking about a sweeping operation targeting virtually the entirety of the other side politically.
It was a fishing expedition.
So let's turn to the Constitution. Subpoenaing the toll records of members of Congress, does that raise serious constitutional concerns?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, we have the PIN who notified the special counsel's office of those concerns. And Jack Smith had apparently said that he was going to consult with the Solicitor General, according to the release of the information from Senator Grassley this morning. Yet when he was deposed by the House and was specifically asked if he spoke with the Solicitor General, he said, on this discrete issue, no.
Among other issues, it raises significant issues with the speech and debate clause, correct?
Absolutely.
So much so that, as you noted, when Jack Smith subpoenaed AT&T to get my toll records, AT&T refused to comply with the subpoena because they concluded that it violated the speech and debate clause. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. And they backed down.
Jack Smith did not try to enforce that subpoena, did he?
He did not.
He did not go to court and litigate the matter, did he?
He did not.
Does that suggest, as it does to me, that he knew damn well what he was doing was illegal and would not be upheld in court?
It does suggest that.
When the federal government subpoenas donor lists, internal communications, organization records, does that implicate the First Amendment and also freedom of association in particular?
It does, and the Supreme Court made that clear in the NAACP case.
Mr. Chamberlain, aside from the legal violations, what specific crimes, if any, were actually uncovered as a result of the Arctic Frost investigation?
I'm not aware of any crimes that were uncovered.
Would the senators, donors, organizations, and individuals who were surveilled and subpoenaed have ever learned about the Arctic Frost investigation had Trump not won in 2024?
Probably not, mainly because of these non-disclosure orders, but also, I mean, the fact that a lot of these records we're now just learning about them because they were in these prohibited access files only available to the FBI director. So if the FBI director was a Democrat, there's no reason to think we'd know about them.
Right.
How would you compare the scope of the violations in Arctic Frost to Watergate?
I think, if anything, it might even be greater. I mean, the scope of this in terms of the sheer number of people and organizations affected. And as I discussed, I mean, this brazen violation of attorney-client privilege, wiretapping a phone call between Susie Wiles and her lawyer, these are egregious offenses. And, you know, if Watergate was just about a single break-in, I mean, this is effectively, compound that by 200.
It's exactly right. 200 at least times worse than Watergate. We have federal judges who are endorsing the idea. I love it. Yeah, that's great. And go hog wild, said Judge Beryl Howell. So shout out to Margot Cleveland. Shout out to Will Chamberlain. Man, we got some good lawyers out there. We appreciate them doing all this good work out there. Tom Cotton, a senator, said Jack Smith's weaponization was one of the most outrageous abuses of power in literal history. And we can't really emphasize that enough. Smith is a disgraced partisan hack. Thank you, Tom. He should be held accountable. And this lawfare must never happen again. hopefully this grand conspiracy thing is really popping down there in Florida, because this is a conspiracy against rights, in this case, against the rights of the senators. And they use the government to do it. And they can keep posting stuff on Twitter, okay, on X. Sorry, Elon, don't ban me. But how about they impeach some of these judges who are a part of it? Ron Johnson also says, the documents released today are only a small fraction, okay? We just are at the tip of the iceberg, showing Jack Smith's partisan investigative tactics. Grassley and I will continue to fight for transparency so that the American people will know the full truth about Arctic frost and the Biden administration's weaponization of the federal justice system against Trump and his allies. And I believe that completely. I mean, their names are still redacted. Huge parts of the document are still redacted. So there is a lot more to come on this, I hope. Now, Kennedy was also out asking some good questions of Chamberlain. Here's a little bit more from Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Chamberlain, I believe 4 telephone companies received these subpoenas for the phone records, the metadata of 20 members of Congress. Is that your understanding?
That sounds right to me, yes.
Okay. I don't have time to talk about all of them. Let me just pick one. Verizon. About 90,000 employees, I think. $140 billion worth of revenue. Does Verizon hire dummies to work in its legal department?
I should think not. They've probably got a good reservoir of lawyers to pick from.
Okay. I suppose you were one of the lawyers at Verizon, and you don't strike me as a dummy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And you got a subpoena from Jack Smith with an NDO, non-disclosure order, signed by Judge Boasberg.
Or Beryl Howell.
Do you think a reasonably competent lawyer at Verizon would know who Jack Smith was?
Yes, I think so.
Do you think a reasonably competent lawyer at Verizon would know who Judge Boasberg was or would inquire about him?
Yeah, I think you could pretty quickly Google him, and if you were concerned that maybe he wasn't actually a federal district judge, I think it's pretty obvious that you'd be able to figure out what's going on.
I mean, it was pretty widely known that President Biden instructed the Attorney General to sue President Trump, and that he hired Jack Smith, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was on the front page of every paper. If you were an attorney at Verizon and you got a subpoena like this, wouldn't you say, maybe I need to check and see who Mr. Smith is subpoenaing here?
Yeah, and especially once I found out it was a representative, it would immediately raise that flag of, like, maybe there's a legal exception here that doesn't apply in other cases.
Yeah, we're going after
Do we know if the employee who received this subpoena at Verizon even sought a legal opinion from an attorney at Verizon?
I do not know.
Well, let's just assume for a second that Verizon, sophisticated company that it is not so incompetent that they wouldn't have had a lawyer look at this. Lawyer looks at it and says, Jack Smith. Lawyer looks at it and says, NDO signed by Judge Boasberg. Lawyer looks at the names as a reasonably competent lawyer would. Says, they're members of Congress. If that was you, what would you do?
Well, I'd make a few phone calls. I'd do legal research to confirm that, complying with this order was obviously lawful, and I might,
Well, and
what was going on.
In fact, you would probably discover the law, being the very competent lawyer that you are, that said no judicial order can bar Verizon from picking up the phone and calling the member of Congress, wouldn't you?
That's right.
You'd probably find that statute.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did find that statute, in order to protect Verizon, as you're their lawyer, wouldn't you have filed a motion to quash?
That's exactly what I do, yeah.
But Verizon didn't do any of that, did they?
Apparently not.
They wanted
They
this.
just sucked all this information up like a Hoover Deluxe.
Yeah.
They didn't even look at, that we know of, to see if these were members of Congress.
Yes, that's right.
What kind of liability does Verizon have here?
Jail.
That's a good question. I need to read the statute more clearly to see what what the actual penalties are. But my guess is there would be some pretty reasonable civil penalties for having done so.
What kind of remedies, if any, are there for the fact that Judge Boasberg said that he had reasonable grounds to believe that these members of Congress would destroy evidence, and that he made that conclusion without holding a hearing?
I mean, I think the only remedy to that is political and impeachment. I don't think there's a unique. You can't sue Judge Boasberg for damages for his judicial decision making. So the only remedy is political.
Would you consider it to be grossly incompetent if Judge Boasberg had not even inquired who these people were?
He knew.
And whether they were members of Congress?
He knew what they're
extremely
doing.
Incompetent.
Yeah, it's also, I would say, malicious. And there's an intentionality behind it. And so one statute is conspiracy against rights. And maybe they could say that after he's impeached, you lose the protection of your immunity because your immunity applies to judicial conduct, right? You can't be harassed and prosecuted and attacked for doing your job, just like presidential immunity. But with Trump's presidential immunity, we had the three buckets. There's official conduct, of course, that you can't prosecute him for. Having a conversation with his DOJ to go investigate election fraud is covered. You have the middle bucket, which is a presumption of immunity. And then you have the final bucket, which is no immunity. Judges can fall into that same framework. And so once Boasberg is impeached, that conduct, according to Congress, a check and balance on them is he is not immune. So that judicial immunity evaporates and you hit them all with a conspiracy against rights charge and put them in jail. So, of course, maybe one day your boy will get to testify. But anyways, great job to Will Chamberlain. Great job to Margot Cleveland. We love our good lawyers out there. And we hope that there are serious repercussions. I mean, how much longer can we just read X posts from the senators who had their whole lives upended? Like, we appreciate Ron Johnson. Great. Tom Cotton. Yes, we're outraged. Rick Scott is now suing. He's saying that he's going to sue Booz Allen Hamilton over his leaked tax returns. Okay. We've got Jeff Clark, who had his life destroyed. Chuck Grassley has seen more fraud and released more documents than anybody, so he knows it better than anybody. Mike Lee, Ted Cruz. Come on, guys. This is the greatest scandal since Watergate, 200 times, according to Will. So how about you just start finding your cojones and draft up the impeachment documents. Send it over to Mike Johnson, and let's get it done. We're going to keep our eye on this one. As Ron Johnson said, it's just the tip of the spear, just the beginning. We only see the little bit of the iceberg poking out of the water, but we know underneath there is a great slew of additional fraud. So we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right. Wild stream today. Thank you guys for being here. Look at what we talked about if you're just joining us. We had, of course, the conversation about the California ballot panic. I want to say pallets full of ballots. Those were seized, 1,000 boxes. And now Rob Bonta, who is the California Attorney General, is filing an emergency writ, a petition up to the Court of Appeals to stop the count. We learned about what is inside that petition courtesy of KESQ News. We saw that Mark Elias is freaking out about it. We checked in what's happening in Fulton County, and we know that we've got a scheduling order. So we got about, 2.5 hours of time for each side. Each side, 2.5 hours coming up Friday. We'll see if the judge modifies that as we come through. Meanwhile, the Democrats are talking about literal regime change, okay, on their side of the aisle. And they're executing it. They've got judges, they've got intelligence agencies, and more. Dolezal from Georgia was telling us about his efforts. Solomon is saying our intelligence agencies have been infiltrated by lefties. We saw Chad Bianco explaining that it's not too much to ask to have an appropriate count when you have elections, such that you don't have a 45,000 vote discrepancy. Big problem. Meanwhile, Trump confirms for us that Jesus endorses the Save America Act. It's in the book of Acts, and I think Matthew wrote about it in chapter 2. And so hopefully the Republican senators figure that out and get it passed. Mark Wayne Mullen is the new Homeland Security Secretary, and he says we want it done. Then we talked, of course, about all of the Arctic frost documents. The AG briefing from Jack Smith's team released January 13th, and it explains explicitly how 2 federal judges called Beryl Howell and James Boasberg Jeb, how they colluded with the team to prosecute their political opponents. It is outrageous. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. And man, this light is pretty sharp, isn't it? Waiting for all the official studio gear to get here. But yeah, that's pretty, and it's a little bit more of a natural color. All right, it's a little better. All right, so friends, thank you for being here. I saw some great donos and some super chats. We have an amazing members only community, by the way. We do streams in the morning for our membos and on Saturdays, and we'd love to have you come join us. You can join up by joining on YouTube, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. We had a great stream this morning. We talked about Tulsi Gabbard and the CIA. We talked about some Iran updates, and we talked about the new Secretary of Homeland, Mark Wayne Mullen, and what's going on with ICE and TSA and all that stuff. So we'd love to have you join us. You can also come over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com or check out our Substack linked in the description below. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Yeah, the light's pretty bright. We're playing around with see, the thing is like the light comes in through the windows too. So as the light changes outside, it changes what we're working on here. So let me press this button. Here, is that a little bit better? Yeah, that looks a little bit more natural, doesn't it? Not so washed out. Should have done that at the beginning of the stream. But tomorrow, we'll have that here. Once our gear gets here, then we'll be down in the basement. We won't have any as many walls and neighbors, and we won't have as many windows or light. So it'll be much better. But friends, thank you for being here. I saw some great donos and some super chats that came in. And yes, I did see this one. Yes, Jim tells you, we are happy to raid your channel. Man, that's great news. We're happy to raid your channel. 7:30 Eastern time. We'll see if we go to 7:30. But also, Jim tells you, happy to send it over your way. Make sure that you're in your settings that you approve us to send stuff to you. And I just subscribed to your channel. So we're happy to do that. But let's see what we got. You may want to kick off a little bit early if that's the case. And here we go. We got some amazing donos, friends. Thank you for sending these in. Let me do a refresh over here just to make sure we got what we're working on. And Jason, man, we brought in some new membos. Jason, you rock. Thank you for doing that. Here we go. California. Oh, wow. Look at this Lego set. You can get this Lego set. It's called California. It's the high-speed rail set. Wow. Look at this. It's 0 pieces, but if you go to lego.com, you can pick up a box of these, which is basically empty. It's only going to cost you $19 billion. So call the Somalians. They have all the $19 billion. Very expensive Lego set. Nothing inside, but you'll get to call yourself a Democrat in California and have a lot of... I guess, moral feeling of superiority even though you're a loser. California high-speed rail, $19 billion, 0 pieces, outstanding. Hey, it's Gavin Newsom. That's a accurate, that's kind of how he looks and acts. Like the Joker, which is what the state is. Shout out to our California friends. Why are you living there? Hey, SMH again. I say that from DC now. It's like, oh gosh. Hey, SMH again. Welcome aboard. Thank you for being our newest of new supporters at the start of the show. We had a great members only stream this morning. We'll see you tomorrow morning. And we'll have a Saturday stream as well. And we can't wait to see you there. Hey, and we had a good DC update. So we had a good DC brief on Sunday. If you're looking for kind of some updates on that, we talked about it a lot on Sunday. So thank you, SMH. Hey, Relantel. We've been fighting our Office T1 line all day. DC hiccups. Is that what it is? I'm not joking. Like 15 minutes before the show, my beautiful wife, Alexis, she says, I think the internet's down. I said, what? I was like, combing my hair. The internet's down. I go, oh, that's great, because the show's in 10 minutes now. And then I checked it, and yeah, it was down. So we're literally streaming from our hotspot on my cell phone right now. And it's actually like good speed. It's pretty wild. But we had a little bit of a hiccup at the start of the show. So DC hiccups. We're going to ultimately get it, like a hard line, hopefully like 1 to 2 gigabyte up speed on this. Thank you, Relantel. So it's DC, huh? Linda Walling. What's up, Linda? Thank you for the dono. No comment on that, but a very nice, handsome pair. Thank you, Linda. We appreciate you. S33 King. What's up? Truth 137 in the house. Our newest supporter. Awesome to have you. And we'll see you tomorrow morning, and grab the stream from this morning as well, King Truth. Yeah, Sean of Thyme, 10 months as a member, a baby +1. Did he say the IRGC, as in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps? Yeah, that's what he said. And the Chinese also. Yeah, that's like a real thing. So apparently the Chinese got the list. And we saw the same thing from Mark Cook on yesterday's show. He was also showing how the Iranians were accessing machines. Crazy. It's happening. Yeah, thank you, Sean of Thyme. Thanks for being here for 10 months, almost a full anniversary to us. Hey, Anne Marie. Thank you, Anne Marie. Another member. You and Sean came in together. Be safe and go in God's path. Amen to that. Thank you, Anne Marie. May we all aspire to that. Thank you for Anne Marie. Yeah, God's not up there shaking his head trying to figure things out. He's got to figure it out. So we just have to follow the path. Thank you, Anne Marie. Hey, Elk Plow. It's simple. If legal, they would have proved it from Elk Plow. A lot of ways we could take that. And maybe in the context of the California vote count, just let them count it. Just go in there and watch them count it. And you can confirm whether it's real or not. Doesn't need to be a huge, giant problem constantly. And you run to federal judges to have them save your booty. Right? There it is. Says it's simple if legal. Thank you, Elk Plow. Hey, Nacho Mama. What's up, Nacho Mama? Best channel. Thanks for your hard work, Rob. Thank you, Nacho Mama. Thank you for supporting us for 19 months. We couldn't do it without you. And I saw somebody asking, why to become a member. First of all, I think we have a lot of member streams. A lot of other people don't do that. We really try to deliver for our members, but it's also a great way to support us. So thank you, Nacho Mama, for being a part of it and making what we do possible. Grateful for you. Hey, this guy, John. What's up, John? Hey, where are you, John? Where are you? Look at that quirky fella. Hey, John Loberg in the house. Bringing in 10 new members. Liberty in the house. What's up, Donnie Potwin? We got Boom Boom 42. Jen Law. We got Dumb Beard. Dan Sundin got a membo. Indoctrination. What's up? J-Ma in the house. And Jacob Castro and Max Anger. All gifted membos, man. Courtesy of John Loberg. Thank you, John. Really appreciate you doing that. And good to see our new Membo friends in the house. Very nice to have you guys here. Thank you for that. Hey, Michelle Parsons. What's up? Thank you, Michelle, for being a Membo and for the dono. Yeah, Rob, Meta has to pay $375 million for breaking a New Mexico law in its child SM case. Social media case, or what kind of case is that? Yikes. That's a lot of money. Meta is trash, okay? They banned us from Facebook. We appealed it. We can't even get on there. So we're banned. Our friends from Empower Oversight, they were doing some marketing for the new documentary, Shielded by Power, and they got their account banned because they're protecting Hunter Biden and everyone. It's garbage. Yeah, it's garbage. K-Bean. Thank you, K-Bean, for the dono. Man, thank you, K-Bean. And thank you for looking out for some of our friends out there on the YouTubes. We love to support our friends out there. Rob, can we raid at Jim Tells You for current news after your show? Muffin can verify. And Muffin says, good content. Bingo. Let's do it. Yeah, so Jim Tells You. Yeah, let's fire that up here, and then we'll send it over to you. And then I can't forward it to you until you're live, but we'll absolutely do that. And I will remember that. I will. Thank you, K-Bean, for that. And K-Bean, thanks again for looking out. And J-Mom, man, we love, Jim Tells You, we love the good content, man. So keep it up, and we'll send some folks your way. And friends, check it out. See what you think. Stick around if you like it. I'm sure you will. Hey, Data 12, man, thank you. Data 12, we got new members on Rumble. Fidget Guy, D-Wit, Donut Mind Me, Salty Zipper, Tater Tots, welcome. Salty Peanut, we got Dog Digger, we got Lil Galaxy, Damn Yankee, One Firefly, and Searman John, gifting membos over on Rumble. What a nice thing to do. Thank you for that, Data. Data 12, and shout out to our friends on Rumble. It's great to see everybody over there. And man, my Rumble chat is being so wonky. There it is. Yeah, there it is. Donut Mind Me, thank you for sharing the link. We got Amelia. We got Rob. Noel's over there. Lug Nuts, good to see you. Coastal Drifter. Lulzia. I have to refresh for some reason. I don't really know why that is. And we got a feature over there on Rumble today. Is that right? Man, shout out to our Rumble friends. There it is, Neuro D. Congrats on the feature, Rob. Man, that's awesome. I'm going to have to say thanks to them. And thank you for flagging that. Otherwise, I would not have seen that. Yeah, we got some good friends on Rumble. Thank you, guys. Hopefully, you're enjoying the show. Hopefully, you subscribe and stick around because we'll be back here tomorrow, same time. Getting into this again. And we hope to see you back here. Shout out to our Rumble friends. Science Well. What's up, Science Well? Thoughts on zeolite detox cleanses? I don't know. One of them has studies that it gets rid of graphene in the jabs. Oh, that's interesting. We're not making any medical claims there, but there's the link for it. Science Well sharing that. And yeah, the detox stuff, again, we're not making any medical claims. YouTube gives us serious strike problems for that. But of course, a good way I would say to detox is just not to input so much garbage, right? It's just to cut out the booze, cut out any of the other vices. And then, of course, cut out the processed foods. Pretty good way to get started on it. Seed oils, it's all packed in everything, anything in a package. Try to avoid it if you can. Hey, Jim Tells You. All right, Jim Tells You. So that's where we're going to send you, my friends. If you want to stick around, check out the channel. Oh, wow. Look how easy. Sev Russ. Lost my driver's license. Went to get a new one. In Texas, you need a birth certificate. Went to the courthouse. Paid a small fee. Easy. Pass the SAVE Act. It's not complicated. Yeah, but Sev Russ, I don't think you're a married woman, and that's what the Democrats are really concerned about. Married women who change their name can't do that. They can't go and get a birth certificate. Yes, they can. It's not complicated. You need to do that stuff, I think, even for a passport and stuff. So thank you, Sev Russ, for confirming. Easy, simple. You did it ahead of schedule and under budget. Pass the SAVE Act. So easy a caveman can do it. Thank you, Severus. Yeah, that's a good. Hey, Andrea. What's up, Andrea? Man, what's up, Andrea? Thank you, Andrea O'Neill. Thank you for the nice dono, Andrea. Andrea, you are a rock star. The only channel that uses 100% source documents and nothing else. We try. Yeah, we try. I mean, we do our best to do that. We love looking at the documents because you can just see them. And yes, I'll opine on the documents and insert some commentary here and there, but you can read it as we're going through it and say, actually, Rob, you're an idiot, which is true a lot of the time. So I don't even debate that. But it's versus people who don't even read the documents. They read some other journalist's, opinion on the documents, and then they present it as fact, which is what mostly the mainstream media does. And it's offensive because it's all filled with lies. We can just read the documents, go through the pages, and see what's actually going on. Andrea, thank you for the nice dono. And thank you for noticing. We appreciate it. So, for some people, I think it's pretty boring. Oh, gosh, we're reading another court document. How long is this one? Sometimes they are boring, but we try to liven it up a little bit. Thank you, Andrea. Hey, Rick D, what's up? Eric Schmidt has announced that the judge approved a 10-year court-enforceable consent decree in the censorship case that he filed while being Missouri AG, biting the U.S. government from pressuring platforms to censor people. Wow, that's great news. Yeah, I don't think I saw that one. Rick D is always here with the sources, and he's usually finding the sources as he's flying out of an airplane. Probably close to 6,000 jumps now, huh, there, Rick? Wild. Hopefully your knee's doing better too, I think. So thank you for that. We may cover that tomorrow morning. I got a bunch of stuff that we're queuing up. I mean, it's been a busy week so far. Rick D, thank you for that. Thanks for being a member on Locals. Hey, what's up? Edward Solomon. I'd love to show you how the elections are rigged in Nevada and Colorado. I'm free anytime. Well, shoot me an email or a DM, Edward Solomon. Yeah, shoot me an email or a DM. Email's robert@spotlightlawyer.com or DM me over at my X account. And that, yeah, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what you're working on and what you're seeing out there. And that sounds very pertinent to what we're talking about, especially as we're nearing this midterm. Edward, thank you for the dono. Shoot me an email and we'll figure out what we can do. We appreciate you being here. Jason on Blast. Hey, congratulations on your adventure to DC. Man, thank you, Jason on Blast. Yeah, it's been a fun journey. We got here on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. And things are good. We're settling in, figuring out the quirks of the interwebs, and we're having a good time. We're excited for what comes ahead. So thank you, Jason, very much. Thank you for being here for 10 months. You're amazing. We appreciate you. King of Biltong, get your juicy meats. Kick off your health journey today. Get some tasty, high-protein meat snacks. Biltong is packed with B vitamins, creatine, iron, zinc, and more. Go to BiltongUSA.com. Check out code Robert. You'll save 10% off. And you'll get some creatine, baby. Creatine's good for your brain. And it's good for your muscles, too. We have to outlift the left and outthink the left. So we need to be supplementally fortified. Jason, well, look at this. 20 new Membo friends coming in. We got Jinganin Ja Racing. That is a heck of a word. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Joe Booty, Stephen Black is here. Michael McCarthy, what's up? Dark Server Ariant. We got Unapologetic Patriot, me too. Claudette Margison, welcome. Touchdown Broncos, what's up, Dan Simpson? Mini Steve, Christopher Sears, we got Low Tech, Danielle Herr is here. Ebtide, Nine Cobra, Rio Crypto, what's up? Mark Radcliffe. Miss Constitutional Rights is here. Red Alert, one of my favorite Command and Conquer video games. Silicon Player, Hugh Heffer, all gifted membos courtesy of Jason on Blast. It's good to see you, Jason. And thanks again for bringing in new friends. We appreciate you doing that. We got this one from Psychological Projectionist. Judges are meant to love the law, not partisan ideas. Yeah, it feels like the whole system is coming crashing down because these judges are not honoring their oaths or the Constitution. They're bypassing even basic ethics like ex parte conversations with prosecutors because they're going after their political opponents like something is frying their brains. TDS syndrome, I think. Psychological, thank you for that. Hey, Jay Marino over on Local says, Occam's razor says Trump will never get reelected. We can bury everything, nothing to see here, and we are the omnipotent deep state. We can do whatever we want. Ex parte and with judges who end up all on Trump cases, Boasberg still not removed. Unless there are perp walks soon, accept that reality that the coup was successful and all hope is gone. Well, it was unsuccessful in that Trump did get reelected. Like a lot of this was done to prevent that from happening. Obviously, they failed on that. The American people, I think, I still have faith in the American people ultimately. I know that might be controversial because a lot of the country feels like they've been commandeered by the propaganda and are basically brainwashed into a certain way of thinking. But I think, and we've been infiltrated by actually non-Americans. Many Americans are, America is not even really a lot of Americans anymore. It's like other foreigners. But I still think, people seek truth. I think people understand when they're being duped, when they're being propagandized. People wise up. It might take a couple of years, but people wise up and they prosecuted. I mean, remember how much they were saying 34 felon. He's a convicted sexual abuser and all these things. People are like, shut up. We know what you're doing. And he still beat the crap out of Kamala. Not a QAnon. Says the statute 18 U.S. Code 242, deprivation of rights under the color of law, vitiates any immunity, even for judges, whenever they act under their authority to violate rights. No impeachment is even necessary. I think that's right. I think that you don't have to necessarily impeach a judge in order to prosecute a judge. But I think it's a good first step as well. And it's kind of a tall order to get to, right? 2/3 for removal. But I think it gives you rather than it kind of gives you the cover of two branches of government. Okay, if Trump prosecutes the judges, it's Trump prosecuting judges. Trump's a dictator. He's a fascist. He's all the things. If Trump and Congress, if Congress impeaches the judges and then Trump prosecutes the judges, that's legit. That's two of the three branches coming after the judge. And I think that gives it a lot more credibility in the end. It was kind of my point, which was inartful in the segment. Hey, Lenny Malley. Thank you, Lenny, for the heads up. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share on all social media platforms. God bless you all. Please and thank you. Thank you, Lenny. And don't do it for me. Do it for Lenny. Thank you, Lenny. Jim tells you, I'm watching. I will go live when you end. Thank you so much. Hope you and the Mrs. DC adventure helps make America great again. We have to help Trump. We have to. So that's why we're here. And we're still figuring out exactly how we're going to do that. But I really appreciate you guys joining us on the journey. And help. And as we settle in, we're going to continue on. Jim tells you, thank you for being here for 7 months. Okay, amazing. So as we're winding down, when the song ends, I'll just keep hanging on until I see you live, and then we'll pass it off. And have a great stream. Jim tells you good stuff. So go check it out. Hey, John says it's some kind of internet thing, causing some people not to be able to log into the PC local site. That's interesting. Okay, so that's curious. So you can't even get into locals. So you're working, Cloudflare's working in Jacksonville, but locals is down. Great. Yeah, that's weird. And I think it's back up. Hopefully it's back up. I'll have to check after the stream. But yeah. How many of the Dems are going to try to start flighting from the country? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, maybe you should start subpoenaing all their records. And you can go to Judge Boasberg and just say, hey, it's the same thing. You have to grant me all of these requests, and you can't ask about who we're going after. And we need sex freak Hirono's phone records. No, we don't. Yeah, good question, Rob. Hey, I would like to schedule an interview to show you how they rigged the Colorado and Nevada elections. I am the real Dward Solomon, and I work with Mark Cook. Man, shout out. I was thinking about connecting with Mark Cook. I got to figure out how to start, integrating interviews. And part of my thought process was maybe we can do some interviews in the morning on the Membo streams, and then because it's hard to like integrate them essentially. Like we go for 2 hours here, and if we put an interview in there, then it kind of deviates and distracts from the other things that we have to cover. So I'm trying to figure out how to squeeze it all in. But thank you, Edward Solomon. So yes, reach out to me, send me an email. And let's see if we can get something scheduled. Baby Lewis, what's up? Just coming back from vacation. Hey, you did a lot of driving. So did we. About 4 days worth. Glad to hear you and Alexis made to Washington. What are your times for shows? God bless, Baby Lewis. So I think we'll probably settle in. So the PM show is staying the same. So 5 p.m. Eastern. We were doing it at 5 p.m. Eastern, even back in Arizona. I think it's a good time. The day kind of closes out, and we're able to figure out what happened and kind of assemble it. And then the morning shows, I think will be like at 10 a.m. Eastern is what we did today, which is a little early on the East Coast. It's 7 a.m., which is a little bit earlier than normal. But otherwise, if we do it at noon, it's a little, it's kind of too close. It's kind of compressed. So that's the plan. Yeah, that's the plan. So 10 a.m. Eastern for Membos, morning stream if you want to join us. And we cover also good segments on those. Like tomorrow, we'll probably cover some other good segments. I got a bunch queued up for tomorrow. So we'll get into that, and then 5 p.m. Eastern time on the back end. King of Biltong, I need your new address, please, Robert. You should have my email address. I really want to stop eating both your and my Biltong. King of Biltong. All right, I'll send it to you. I'll definitely send it to you. I think I have it. I'm pretty sure I have it. Pretty sure. King of Biltong, thank you for that. King of Biltong keeps us sufficiently supplied with the best Biltong you've ever had. Hey, Jay Marino. Only don't tell me you're innocent because it insults my intelligence and it makes me very angry. What is absolutely clear to anyone with an IQ above 70 is that Dems weaponized every branch of government along with Dem state governments in a seditious conspiracy. An ex-FBI testifying today, stating that the FBI has never been politicized and Patel has damaged its integrity, has convinced me that men can become women. WTF. WTF. Yeah, Jay Marino. They're just institutionalists. If Cash, fires anybody from the FBI, Cash is the bad guy, not the FBI agent. Hey, Edward Solomon. I would like to schedule an interview on how they rigged the Colorado and Nevada elections. I am the real Edward Solomon. I work with Mark Cook and Tina Peters. It's great to see you, man. Edward, thank you for the several donos here. Let's connect. So you're the real Edward Solomon on X? Beautiful. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you. Dan, Safeguard America Voter Eligibility Act or the SAVE Act? Yes, in the book of Acts, in Jesus. Yeah, hey, Michelle Parsons. Funny, I was married for 35 years before my husband passed away. Man, sorry to hear that. Michelle, may your husband rest in peace up in heaven with many of our loved ones. And I have never had a problem voting using my married name. Imagine that. Yeah, I don't even know what the argument is. It's that, I guess, if you change your name, then you don't update your ID for some reason. And so you bring your ID and it doesn't match your new name. And so you don't get to vote. I think it's just nonsense, honestly. They just are trying to scare people that like women are going to be disenfranchised, but they're not. Hey, Rick D, man, over 6,000 jumps, okay, out of an airplane. 6,000. Think about that. Landed 6,000 at 3:17 p.m. March 15th, Rob. I'm now at 6012 and working towards 7,000 jumps. It's crazy, dude. 7,000? It's hard to do 7,000 of anything, let alone jump out of an airplane. Golly, Rick. Man, well, you're going to get there and we'll be here for it. Thank you, Rick, man. Thanks for the update. I was like, you probably are close to 6, but 5 was not long ago. 5 jumps was not long ago. Rob, did you get your Easy Pass yet? You don't want to pay more than you have to via toll by plate. You know, no, we haven't. And I think we drove through a toll. So I got to check that. Yeah, I think we drove through a toll on Sunday. I was like, oh, are we supposed to be driving on this thing? I'm like, all right, well, we're on it. So I don't really know how it works. We don't have those in Arizona. Thank you, Spuds, for the reminder. I got to add that to the list. Hey, one old guy. Yeah, what's going on? Lib women shouldn't even worry. 1, their husbands take their name. 2, they can't drive. What? Drove an agent. You know how that ended. 3, they are just so oppressed by the everything man to go to a courthouse to get a birth certificate. It's true. Liberal women. Okay. Because their husbands take their names anyways. They can't drive. And if they go to a courthouse, then the men are oppressing them in this patriarchal building. That's right. One old guy. Thank you, one old guy, for the very nice dono. And what? Locals died on desktop web, died about 1/3 of the way through the stream. Not just Rob, all of locals. That's frustrating. Thank you for saying that. Don't mind me. Let me check it on my end. And is it back up? I got a couple of comments here. Let's see. Rick D, we got that one. It looks like we're still live, so hopefully it came back up. We got a couple other comments on locals, and then we'll say hello to our friends on X, and we'll wrap it up here, my friends, and we'll send it over to Jim Tells You. Trudy says, I made it. Says, Rose, UK things are going to crap over here. Oh, gosh. What about Rupert Lowe, man? We're excited about that guy. Hopefully he can take over England and bring it back. Thank you, Trudy. Thanks for being here. Humble Sat Boy. So distrust in our elections. The distrust has already been sown. Mark Elias. It's here. It's in the room. And you had a hand in sowing it. That's why all this is happening. From Humble Satellite Boy. Good to see you, Satellite Boy. You talk about the barcodes working on the fake IDs. Is it possible that voter registration databases have been hacked? Yes, I think that's unequivocal, actually. I think the Chinese did it for sure. And fake people matching those IDs have been inserted into those databases? Yeah. So I think it could go both ways. So you can find probably a bunch of people who are like low propensity voters who are on the list and steal their IDs, steal their identities, and then pass those off to fake IDs, and then presumably request ballots with that and get absentee ballots and get a bunch of ballots that are shipped over to somebody and then fill out those ballots. Or, yeah, you have the fake IDs that are created to match the inserted registration records, really. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it happened. Crazy KPM. Speaking of crazy, everything is finally nuts. We just roll over and quit America? Yeah. I don't think so. No, heck no. Heck no. This is our chance to save the country. And we got like 2.5 years left. So we got to get it done. We got to get it done. Dan, thank you. Yeah, locals seems like it's working right now. John says it's still dead. Well, it's working right now for me. This is on the PC right now. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. So maybe it's in certain regions or something. Jacksonville, maybe south, like Jacksonville, Florida. Is that where Jacksonville is? Yeah. Hey, shout out to Brianna Mello. She just posted this. Republicans are fake outraged over Jack Smith, but they won't do anything about it. Oh, Brianna, hitting us with a dose of truth today. Brianna Mello has now, let's say, retired from InfoWars, moving on to the next thing. And so we're happy to see her out there posting some stuff. Shout out to Brianna Mello. We love her. Says Neuro D. Thank you, Neuro D, for sharing this one. Join the watchers over on Locals for a morning Membo stream. The best meme smiths on the interwebs. Exactly, like the Lego, the $19 billion Lego set with zero pieces in it that you'll never be able to build. Hey, Neuro D, yeah, thank you to Rumble. I'm going to send them an email and say thank you for that. And Be Torn, you may have to hurry to catch the cherry blossoms. Says Penguin 6 is a good follow if you're not following him. Now that you're in DC, he's a good unofficial tour guide. Just don't follow his choices of places to eat for lunch. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. So, and somebody this morning suggested that we do a cruise. And so we're looking at that, not like a cruise, like an hour little boat tour around the cherry blossoms. Great idea. We're absolutely going to do that. And so thank you for the link on that, BitTorn. I'll check out that one as well.
Hey guys, good
and see
morning.
What this fella has to say. He's in DC? Man, shout out. Cool. Penguin 6. Hey, out to get me. Bouncing around Rumble, came across your show. Only took the first 5 minutes for me. Seems great. Out to get me. What a nice thing to say. Thanks for saying that, my man. Good to have you here. Thank you for joining us and for being here on the X webs with us. And yeah, I'm going to have to send the Rumble guys a nice email. That's really nice of them to do that. We appreciate that they've done that for us. Very nice. Yeah, so John, you're having some problems over there? All right. Well, hopefully it's working by tomorrow morning because we will be back in the morning for our members only stream. And so before we wrap on the day, we want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. Thank you so much for modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly around here. We got Muffin Rando in the house. We got Donut Mind Me. Great to have Donut here. We got John holding the fort down. We got K Bean and Carrie B. Of course, we got Neuro D, Janek, and Dog Digger. And of course, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and Just Rhonda. Modding the fort down, keeping things nice and orderly, doc mastering, and meme smithing away. And my friends, thank you for being here. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for sharing the channel with a friend or family member, because we're going to come back here tomorrow. We're going to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, our spotlights are a little bit small because we're kind of like facing the neighbor's wall. But we're in the basement soon. It's going to be coming back full swing, so you can count on that. But until we're back here, my friends, I hope you have a beautiful night. And you do return back tomorrow to get into it again, because in order to do this appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability, transparency, and justice down upon our system, with the hope of finding justice. See, even I can't do it appropriately when I can't scream it. But we'll be back here, my friends. Until we are, make it a great night. Sleep very well, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. nothing to hide. So drop a like and don't forget to share, and bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through